initiative where we've been looking at stitching the supply and the demand side of agriculture together. So apart from this, the social space, which is very strong at NSRCEL, and they have been working with various partners, both CSR, government partners, and supporting startups both in the profit as well as non-profit space. So we were one of the first 6 incubation centers who were supported by the Atal Innovation Mission. And we have also been working with the Department of Science and Technology and various other partners across different spaces. This is the impact numbers that we've had. So we've touched over probably about 1.5 lakhs or more in terms of entrepreneurs' lives, supporting them when they come in with an idea and they want to know how we can support them. We give in and help them navigate their way through the journey. And sometimes we also put them across the different enablers who can help them in different ways. So it doesn't limit us to tell them that you're just a part of only the NSRCEL journey. They're a part of their journey. So our focus at NSRCEL has always been on the entrepreneur. So a warm welcome to all the founders here today. We have Tracex founder, Mr. Srivatsa, and Satyukt founder, Mr. Satkumar Tomar. We are yet to look at, I think Sandeep hasn't reached us as yet, but he's supposed to come in. He's from Krishi Tantra. So the whole focus of today especially is, while we're doing various things, I think this is one of the first ever initiatives by an incubator to come out with a case study in the agri space. So we're looking at releasing 3 case studies over a period of time as a series. The first one being on Tracex, but I'll come to that in a while. So I'd like to kickstart the event, having given you all the background. Since Dr. Praveen Rao isn't here today, I would like Dr. Kalpana to come in and share a few thoughts on what AgHub has been doing and what she visualizes for us in the future partnership. She's a distinguished scientist from the Agricultural Research Institute of ICAR with almost 3 decades of experience. She's an agronomist and expert, and she also brings in the management angle. She was a joint director at NARAM previously. She's also won a lot of awards for some amazing work that she's done. Pleasure to have you here, ma'am. Over to you to share your thoughts on how you look at this, taking it forward, please. Well,
so as I said, a very, very good afternoon to all here. Mr. Shaji, pleasure to meet you again here after we last met in Hyderabad. The NABARD team, Mr. Ramesh, and your entire team from NABARD, TSRO, Karnataka. My host team, of course, and as rightly said, our partner, what we call the NSRCEL, the entire team, Professor Vaiti, Professor Gopal Naik, Professor Srinivasan, I think Dr. Rahul has to come, Mukta, and all the teams. If I apologize if I missed any names from the team here, but you want, okay. Mic is something which is definitely not women friendly. Okay, you could have just put it in the pocket for men, but somehow Indian women always have this challenge. Okay, so, and you know, when you hold this, you really look as you are going to talk on the stage, not in an academic area, being in a college. Anyway, coming back, my own team from AgHub, and I know my team at Hyderabad is also part of watching us on this program. All the researchers and students and other professors from IM. First of all, it's great to be in this campus, a green campus. From a green campus, it's always welcome sight after you go through the concrete jungle, which comes from between the airport to this place. It was a 2-hour journey, which we are not used to. You know, the travel from Hyderabad to Bangalore is shorter than the travel from the airport to this place. But at the end of it, you see a nice, beautiful green campus, quiet. I can well understand why it is so, motivating and for the students, and that academic vibrance which comes out of this. It's just too much, really good. Now, how did AgHub or PGTSU come into this campus? I'll just take a couple of minutes. First of all, I must say, personally, at a very personal level, it's one of my dreams come true in my career. I never thought agriculture can also be converging with a management school. This facet of management coming into agriculture is a very, very recent one. Most of us in the academics in agriculture are offshoots of the Green Revolution. All of us have grown up with only one goal in our lives, to increase the production, whatever, and that too in a mostly driven in a public sector module. And suddenly in the last 2 decades, you have several actors coming up in first initially in form of industry partners, which was itself new, but then we slowly enveloped them as partners. Then we had a lot of NGOs, we have nudge team here also in the developmental sector. And let me tell you, development is part of agriculture, something which we have probably missed out over the years. Over the years, agriculture, even in the ministries, you see agriculture ministry, rural development ministry, they're never together. But right now, I think it is working together because there are many things we need to do together. And this I realized only when I started working in this after my tenure in agriculture. I realized there's so much to do in development, which agri-scientists perhaps have missed. So when we come industry, NGO, and the next person, we realized there was a huge young people coming into agri sector with a lot of ideas. And this mantra of innovation started stemming into the agri sector very recently. It's a very, very recent. We're not even at the level where health and pharma is. It's a very recent. So why I'm telling you is the system itself, the agri-food system, particularly in India, which is modeled on the land grant scheme, has stemmed out of a lot of public sector, government sector, policy-driven type of engagement, right till the academics. So you never had anybody other than an agriculture scientist. Mr. Shaji is a student from Kerala Agriculture University. There is a norm that we don't give admission in PG to non-agriculture students. There used to be a huge uproar. But today, you're in a converging world. We need to take a lot of partners to bring that marked effect in through agri. We did that. Just recently, I think, at least it's my knowledge, I would say in the last 17 years, agriculture contributing as a sector to the GDP, almost 20%, is the first time. At least I didn't hear so many, but not to say, thanks to pandemic, it came out. So we understood that there is something if we collectively do together, the decisions which were taken because of, the need actually went to build a good business models which emerged. That means the potential is there. The complexities are there in agriculture. Too many players are there. And how do we actually navigate through all this is the biggest challenge for most policymakers across it. How do we bring that inclusivity across all the sectors? So with this idea, when we started working about 10 years back in NAM, that's National Academy of Agriculture Research Management, I was fortunate enough to see the idea of incubation and innovation in a training institute by and large. And today, in ICR, you have 50 agribusiness incubators across the country, supported by the Indian Council of Agriculture Research. That means there's something incubators are doing, incubating new ideas. But then this incubation is perhaps needs a little bit more fillip. And institutions like NABARD have also started opening up and bringing in this facet through their schemes. Money is good for everyone because we have to initiate. But the resistance, just now we were talking about how much resistance comes in the system. Even to seed an incubator, sometimes in the university, why do we need? Our job is to only produce food and give it to farmers free. Why do we even have to think of is the thought process which comes in? At the Professor Jayashankar State Agriculture University, since about last 3 years, the university is well accomplished, one of the newest universities after the new state of Telangana was born, doing very well in terms of metrics, in terms of research, extension, as well as academies with about 2,500 students. But we find most of the students come out and go into the public organizations or at the best agriculture research surveys or the university as faculty. The need for a new entity and a new direction of bringing agri students into entrepreneurship actually was seeded. And that's how AgHub, a Section 8 company at the PGTSU, was literally born. It was born only in October 2020, but basically with the previous experience of about 15 years now, we could quickly stitch what we want. And at AgHub, it is a single window where anybody can walk in with an idea and go back with a product or a process into the market. That's the journey we take through in various programs. It can be the traditional incubation program. It can be a non-traditional, first of its kind, Agri-Tech pilots, the results which we are seeing in form of 3 case studies right here today. Or we have a unique program which we offer for little more mature startups. We call it co-innovation. Again, a first of its kind in the entire country, where a startup with an urge to do more R&D on his product, to take product version 1 to product version 5, we do co-innovation with the scientist team. It's a beautiful model which is working up and shaping up very well. And of course, we have also opened for the enterprises who are a little mature than startups, but still need a little bit more guidance. This is one part. But my focus in AgHub and the challenge I've got from NABARD is end of 5 years, with NABARD is supporting AgHub in a very gracious and a noble way. And the challenge is, can we build one student entrepreneur from the agri system? That's the challenge. And I commit even today, yesterday in the board meeting also we committed. So we are doing a series of steps, right from scouting ideas, going through practically in the fields to scout beautiful ideas, put those ideas into shape, fund them for prototype, take the prototype to the next for seed funding, and then leave them in. If we're able to take this journey, perhaps that part also would be yet another, sort of feather in the cap in a traditional agriculture university, which has always been top to bottom approach. This would be a little different, is what. So this is fairly something which we are still doing. A lot of new things coming up, a lot of learnings coming up. Now, in all this, it's also important we expand our ecosystem partners. And we are doing it in a very, very need-based way, I must say. I mean, that's what everybody would do. But when we had an opportunity, through thanks to Mukta and her team, we started working together. We realized that we could have and forge a good partnership. And today's event is a result of that, continued journey of taking things. How do we partner? We thought we'll do it. We have also Nudge here, who is our partnering institution in another fashion, where we want to take startups into the developmental sector. We partner in those programs here. In this, we actually look for for a lot of guidance, help, working together in terms of taking management concepts into agriculture. We do have a course at the PGTSU, which is for agribusiness management. It was started about 10 years back, but perhaps it requires a flavor. And very recently, the ISB did an evaluation, and one of the first offshoots of the report was you need to have more case studies which are actually stemming out from real life situations in agriculture and not the ones which come from management school. So this is what we are actually looking at building. We are also very eager to work with IIM for actually working together different projects in agriculture. Of course, the focus is agri and food. We don't deviate even 1 minute of that. Having said that, today's agri-food production consumption system, it's a long word. That's what we call academicians. It's a very long word. A lot of foci of interventions where every person in this hall will have a very good role and a contributing role to play. And this is an open invitation from AgHub to every member here or beyond to partner with us in our journey of sparking, bringing a new change, which ultimately goes to the farmers. That's at the heart of our thing. I forgot to mention AgHub. It's a hub at Hyderabad. We have 3 spokes, and that's a unique part of this incubator. Again, a first in the country, where we have opened 3 spokes in 3 different agroclimatic zones of the state of Telangana at this point of time. Our intention is, through the spokes, we build farmer innovators, rural enterprises, including women and SSTs, so that they also get the flavor of getting into the entrepreneurship, manage. Also help our own startups, the tech startups who are at the hub. We focus on tech startups and students at the hub. If we can build a bridge and take them to the villages so that they can in turn bring better livelihoods to some of the youth engaged with their activities of business. And actually it is happening. Out of my 30+ startups, already we have a handful of startups who have started employing youth because their business is centered at the village. And that's the best part. Now yesterday we decided that the drone academy is now coming up at PGTS. We are going to have ambitious plans of taking drones to the villages and employing those young youth who would like to be more tech savvy and but work at the local conditions. And I think that's the challenge we would like to invite here to take us, come along with us in this journey, and maybe together we can all make a difference. Case study is yet one deficiency in the agri-universities, which only the IIMs can help us. And I'm very, very happy today that we have set off what we planned in the COVID, in the long, dreary, online meetings of trying to understand, get to knowing each other. Today is the first time we're actually meeting people in person. But then when there is a will, I think there is a way. And it has come through. And I would even say, let's not stop here. We have a huge lot of material which can be shaped up. And if we can take it to the management schools, the flavor of agri-food, the concerns, the farmers' challenges, which everybody in the country talks of, we can collectively try and bring down the pain which my stakeholders are definitely facing. I don't know whether I have stuck to the 20 minutes, but I think this is time I take. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to know what your thoughts are for the agri space and to know a little more about what AgHub has been doing over a period of time. And I'm glad that most partnerships which are normally on paper and sometimes don't see an outcome at the end of the day, there's something brewing in this space, and that's wonderful. I would now like to go over to our keynote and guest speaker for today, Dr. Shaji Krishnan V. He has more than 28 years of experience in all facets of banking, both commercial and development banking, with more than 7 years of full-time board level expertise. He was the chairman of the largest RRB of the country, Kerala Grameen Bank. And what is very interesting to note is he's one of the youngest deputy managing directors of NABARD. So he's also the chairman of NAB Kisan Finance, and which is one of the subsidiaries of NABARD. And he's in charge of credit, strategic investments, data management, risk management, and off-farm sector development, IT. So is there any space that you've left? It seems to run into pages. Okay, that's really a lot of areas that you've been handling, and no wonder you are the youngest DMD, because I think there are a lot of areas that you've had an exposure to in your previous experiences, and he's guiding and monitoring the activities of NABARD in 16 states. He strongly believes that data is the new oil, and I think we can't have a better person than him to talk on today's topic. And he facilitates IT interventions both in rural financial institutions to ensure seamless flow of credit for development. In fact, I think it would be wonderful if Dr. Shaji could spend some time a little later, perhaps online, with some of our startups in the fintech space who are actually having a lot of solutions and are working to help, especially in the rural sector, credit for the farmers and all of that. In fact, one of our startups who was supposed to come in today is What's Loan, and their focus is on trying to help the farmer get loans in as quick as 10 minutes. So which means all the credit worthiness, everything can be taken care of. And thanks to Professor Venki for putting us on to Professor Jayadev, and in turn, they helped us get support from the Union Bank of India, and all of this has taken shape in one way or the other. Thank you so much, Professor Venki. Going back to what Dr. Shaji has been doing in terms of his work, he's also implemented significant policy changes in NABARD for risk management, internal process and procedures, and also taken care of policies for, especially for risk management. So having said that, today he's going to talk to us about how the digitizing of agri value chain can create an impact, and how it can help the rural side. And one of the things that we do at NSRCEL to kind of connect the dots is a focus on rural entrepreneurship. Some of our team members had come in some time ago. In fact, we still have someone. Vijay Lakshmi, a part of the social team, is also here, and they take care of rural entrepreneurship in a way. So perhaps we can have a longer conversation a little later, Mr. Ramesh. So over to, while we wait for Dr. Shaji to complete his call, I would like to kind of build a little more on what NSRCEL has been doing. I'll take that opportunity. We are focused a lot on supporting women both in the early stage as well as the scale-up stage. We work with Goldman Sachs in this space, and sometimes with the Department of Science and Technology in a different way. And while we do the early stage, we've had about, initially there was, this is the 4th cohort that's running, and we currently have about 200 women entrepreneurs. Previously, out of the 100 entrepreneurs who were there, they were 96 of them who continued their journey throughout the incubation process and are still managing to be successful and sustainable. 90 out of 96, there were 65 of them pan-India. So which means we've even been able to touch, based out of Bangalore, we've been able to touch quite a few places in the Northeast, Assam, and few other far-flung places, which is very difficult in terms of connectivity. And as far as the scale up and acceleration kind of a mode interventions that we drive in is through the Goldman Sachs 10K program, where we have women founders who've had their business running, but they're looking at how can we pivot, what can we do differently. So that program is done in a very different way. It's an 18-month duration program where there are interventions at different stages, which is capsulated. So we've been now, okay, so yeah, there's something brewing on that side, but I will request Ganesh probably to share a few thoughts on that, and Professor Venki. So it'll like probably a little after that. It's still in the initial stages. It's brewing, like I said. So maybe when it forms up a little more, we will. Yeah. So this is on the similar front. Thank you so much, sir. No, not at all. Yes. You.
I'm keeping it in pocket. So this also or remote is it? Okay, that's okay. So good afternoon now. When the PPT is getting loaded. In fact, I thought oh, I'm coming to an academic institution, so I should have some matter with me. Otherwise, there will be some problem. In fact, I am here. I was just like the VC was about was actually missed. I was about to miss this event, but of course, a lot of being in Mumbai and that too at NABARD and handling agriculture and rural development. So anytime we can be summoned by the government of India, who is our master, because understandably a lot of issues coming up, a lot of calls will come. Now also they were just asking about some requirement of funds or something like that, which offhand I have to reply. I can't refer and reply because we are supposed to be know all. In fact, I didn't miss this event particularly because NABARD is first of all entering into agri startups or rural startups in a large way. That is one thing. And then I can't afford to learn from the practitioners, afford to lose an opportunity to learn from the practitioners. And then the event is in IIM, where Rancho has wandered over here with disruptive interventions. So I hope to meet more Ranchos over here. In fact, we are in the process of identifying Ranchos in the rural sector and helping them out to set up businesses. In fact, partial way we were successful, and we are in the learning phase. And this, my visit to here is a part of that learning phase. Of course, I'll give you some thinking about what we think. May not be right. I have to now get it validated from the practitioners. So even though we started venturing into this startup space in 2004, small baby steps we did at that point of time, and we lost money, in fact, and it is understandable. And then learning from our experience, we made our kitty little larger. And then we made it into a subsidiary also, so that it's a specialized activity. We should co-opt expertise from the market. Even now we are in the evolving phase. Of course, we have to now internalize this, supporting the system, because we feel that then if you want to be the food basket of the world, then a lot of disruptive interventions has to be there. And that disruptive intervention should come from the practitioners. And then they may not have money. We being a development banker, the niche space of a development banker is that we have to reduce dependency on the government, the dependency of the public on the government, and push them out to a self-sustaining phase where they can be dependent on commercial entities like by banks for credit or for research institutions for other inputs. So we are in that phase. We have to create business for ourselves. We can't call it business, but we have to create activities for ourselves. We don't have any parallels. Maybe SIDBI is a parallel to us, but SIDBI is a little far behind. So I'll give you the perspective of how we think. It can be wrong. So my first slide is that this we will view from a social angle, not from a business angle. And we mean that for any social angle to succeed, it has to transform into business. So that also is an important thing. Otherwise, every time we'll be dependent on the government, thinking that it is a social angle which we are helping out. So we don't want to do that. We want to also drag the social angle to the successful business models. So here there is a need that after the Ukraine war, there are a lot of supply chain disruptions happening, and the world was looking to India for the cereal, rice, wheat, and such other things. But we couldn't meet the expectations because we have a lot of people to feed ourselves. Even our buffer stocks got depleted, and we had to ban export. So now agriculture is now getting transformed. Agriculture in India is getting transformed into agribusiness. That is one thing. The second thing is that it is not for feeding our population alone. It has to feed the world. Even if you recall, I'll take some 5 minutes extra. Okay, the I2U2. You have heard about that? That no, they also no, are focused on making India the food hub of the world. In fact, UAE and the US are now looking to India to invest. Israel, particularly, Israel is coming up with a lot of technology. They have precision agriculture and also high density agriculture. So they want to invest in India with their technology. And India, no, luckily, we are not in dearth of funds, but think the correct business model and the technology. Israel has the technology. UAE needs India for their food security. So here, so actually, we are now trying to feed more people. In fact, the population itself will grow by 45%, and India is supposed to be the largest, no, in terms of population, the biggest country in next 2 years. Somebody says that it is a positive thing for us, so that we can rightfully stake claim as a seat in the Security Council of UN, being the most populous country in the world. So there is one more angle, but then there is a negative angle to that. The food security, the density, the consequent effects. So here, so more crop should come from every drop. That is what more crop per drop. Our Honorable Prime Minister also tells about that. Land is not an infinite commodity. There is almost most of the land which can be cultivated has already been cultivated. Now we have to increase the density or rather productivity. Now, as I see Indian tech, the drivers are rural-urban divide. I said I am viewing it from the social angle. There is a divide, rural-urban. 30% of the income is only being generated from 70% of the population, whereas in urban areas, the 30% of the population is countering 70% of the income. So it is a huge divide, which we in NABARD also are concerned about. And then the digital ecosystem has evolved, and in fact, India is one of the best in terms of payment system. India has its own payment system, the fourth largest, or rather it is becoming the largest, and we are in the process of internationalizing our payment system, that is the RuPay payment system. Then the agriculture technology sector, in fact, needs to now improve. Technology sector in terms of agri production and post production, that is the MSME sector also. So these two sectors now have to complement. These two sectors have to complement. That is one thing. Second thing is that these sectors should coexist in rural areas. We want to reduce the load on urban areas. You see Bangalore and Mumbai are almost unlivable. So we want to reduce that. Then food security for India. Of course, India has achieved food security, but it's a question mark anytime because of climate change. Last year, the wheat production has come down by 15% because of climate change, which has happened. So we need to be worried about that. So we need to have buffer stock. Indian buffer stock is now depleted. Now, at the same time, we have to now become the breadbasket for the world. So we at NABARD is concerned about that. So we have to transform this agriculture to an external looking, internationalized agriculture. So I said about this per capita income, the agri sector to agribusiness. That is what we are now trying to look at. Agribusiness in terms of more MSMEs. So NABARD Act also got amended recently so that we can support MSME. Earlier it was only agriculture and rural areas. Now MSME activities in rural areas have been covered. So now even within NABARD also, if you see the refinance, so National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development, MSME is not at all there, but share of refinance to MSME has surpassed that of agriculture. So there also there is a shift which is happening. And then the last point is very much of concern for us. The credit, 30% of households are still not able to access credit. So we feel that credit or money, financial assistance is the best, is the thing which propels growth. So we need to concentrate on that as well. Next. So we view as the Agri-Tech as the fourth revolution. The first revolution was mechanization, then the green revolution happened, then use of agrochemicals came, and here digital agriculture revolution, I think it should be the most disruptive and transformative, and we are at the cusp of that. In fact, we need to now push as a development bank. The earlier revolutions, the green revolution, we have supported a lot because the refinance, in fact, consequent to 60s, 82 when NABARD came into being, there were dearth of funds in the rural areas because the need for funds were also high. So as a refinancing institution, NABARD came into being. And now here the agri-tech space or rural tech space or food tech, whatever you call, this need to be supported. For that, we need to have, no, we believe that in the rural areas now digitization, even though India is ahead in digitization, a lot of data is now still existing in physical form. So we need to provide a primer for these startups to work on the data. So we are now trying to become the data warehouse for the rural sector, not only agriculture sector. We want that primary data, and for that, I'll deal with that later. Next. Now, so now value chain, of course, why this is important from previous slide. Yeah. So this is an academic thing for you, but for us, the agri value chain, unless it is not defined and approved by RBI, financial institutions will not come and assist, because there is an incentive, there is a positive discrimination to agriculture credit. You all know that 18% norm is there, and if any bank is defaulting in that, they have to keep the money at a lower rates with NABARD as RADF or PSL shortfall funds. So here now, recently there was a expert committee on agri value chain and agri value chain financing. The SBI MD was chairing that, and I was a part of that committee. So that committee was supposed to give recommendations to the government of India for agri value chain financing. So if you see the value chain, there are different nodes, and for each node there are a lot of credit products. But on an integrated manner, there is no credit product. Warehouse financing was there, but then banks have burned their fingers on that. And some banks have tried to innovate, but in the agri space, there is no actually incentive for innovation. That is why government is pushing banks to lend at least 18% of their total net bank credit to agriculture. So here, what we are trying to do is that we are trying to give a definition and get it approved by RBI. And then once it is approved by the RBI, then any finance into these value chain players will be treated as agriculture. That means there will be an incentive for banks to lend. So here, this different definition, we have taken some, there's a lengthy definition. I have split those definitions into the players, but each of these nodes or the player, there is no opportunity for you, the agri startups, to innovate. Next. So, yeah, you can just click on. I thought I will have that. Yeah, this you can skip. Generic value chain. Just next. Yeah. So this I'll not go deeper. This is an academic thing. I've taken it from the APRACA guideline book. So different nodes are there, different activities are there, players are there, but mostly it is by traders. If you can see that traders don't add value. So here the value chain is not supply chain per se. So we need to only keep those players who add value. Supply chain, if it is there a player with no value addition, maybe taking some risk, maybe in storage and all, he may incur some risk. But that anyway, the other players in the node also can take care. So if that player is not adding value, we have to disintermediate that player. So, and then the benefits out of whatever activity he's doing, it has to be accrued by other players who are adding value. I feel that I think that you will be getting no sense of what I'm saying. The traders, of course, are viewed negatively, but in some cases they are the value chain financiers, because so whether we can displace them, but in a larger way it can't. We have seen in the farm agitation which has happened. Government was taking some steps to actually create a value chain which is beneficial for the farmers. The farmers organizations should come together and work together, and whatever value they are creating as part of that coming together, that should be kept within the farmer community itself. If you see that definition, that principle, in that case, the cooperative societies are the original farmer organizations, but they have legacy issues. They got highly politicized. So government thought of having a different set of no entities, that is the farmer producer organizations, which can be registered as a legal entity, either as a cooperative society or as a commercial entity, rather no as a trust, or even under Companies Act, and partnerships. Partnerships is not possible because number is high, but still up to 20 people can come together and form an organization. So now when you see about the value chain, we will request your help to disintermediate those players who are not adding value. So that using technology we need to have. So that will be one. Actually, you have to look at those players, and then you have to come in with technology and how we can disintermediate those persons. That's what we have to look at next. So pain points we all know, which are areas there are lack of information, market access, procedural hurdles, and limited scale. So each of these pain points we were trying to address. Lack of information, that we are trying to address through digitization, and a lot of activities have happened in that space, but still a lot of things to do. Maybe 30% of the activity only we have done it. Market access, yes, there was a attempt by the government, but then in a different form it may come. Procedural hurdles and limited scale, these things we are trying to move to overcome through aggregation, and also simplifying the procedures and digitizing the whole journey. So all these activities I need not mention, because you are all in as Agri-Tech players. You may be in either of these these 6 activities. Any of these 6 activities you will be there, and you will be either fully meeting those challenges or partially meeting. But there you may also have to create some partnerships. In fact, from our side, when we invested in different companies through our subsidiary, we saw that if we look at it at a higher level, we saw some opportunity for partnerships between our investee companies, and we were trying to encourage those partnerships, and so that it will create value for both the company and also for us as an investor. So here you can also partner, and a value chain of agri startups also can, or other tech startups can also be forming part of agri value chain. Next. So this also I need not, you can go ahead, because this I'll leave it here. These are all, yeah. So now finance is one part which we are concerned about, and we try to assess what is the potential at this level of the last year's level of production of gross value added, and also the credit given. When we saw that 8.86 trillion is the value which is waiting for some intermediation. It is huge. That is at the last year's value. This year another 15% will increase, and if at all some sort of disruption happens, I think this has to go at least by 50% in the next 2 years, and another 50% maybe in another 5 years. So if that means doubling of that should happen. And if that happens, then that will actually propel India to be the country which is providing food security to the world. So here the formal credit mediation opportunity, because as a part of expert committee, we try to assess that, and this was the figure which is given to the government, and as whatever recommendations we had, I think government is implementing in different areas. In fact, you all might have heard about the new Department of Cooperation which is coming. So, she was referring to that agriculture and cooperation are 2 different activities. Now, earlier it was in one department actually. Now it is now divided, but then it is given, an undivided giving undivided attention to cooperation, and cooperation will encompass most of the departments in the primary sector, and that is the vision of the new cooperation ministry. And in fact, that coordination between the activities, say for example, we have an animal husbandry department, we have a fisheries department, we have an agriculture department. But in corporation, it all encompasses all activities. So now on that space, any entity at the national level which understand cooperation, that is NABARD, because NABARD is the supervisor of banking cooperatives. And then also, in the cooperative societies, that is the primary societies also, we have a visibility there, because we are supervising the next tier, that is a district cooperative bank, which is the central bank to the primary agricultural credit societies. So this is the value chain which is available, and I think the opportunity is increasing, and it is expected to double in less than 5 years. Next. So now a lot of initiatives from government side and the private sector side we have taken, and all these initiatives were not in an aggregated manner or in an orchestrated manner. It was all in piecemeals. So some attempts have been made. For example, in the government initiative, the PM Kisan farmer database, but the database is huge. 14 crore farmer data is available, and all these farmers are geotagged in terms of the bank accounts, in terms of their location. So that is a wealth of data for any Agri-Tech company to work with, because any Agri-Tech company has to work with farmer, and you identify farmer as an aggregation of data regarding farmer. It's not by person, either it's biometric or it's bank account which is KYC enabled. So this database is available, but how many of the Agri-Techs are having access to this? Right now, we are in the process of dialogue with the government to open up this database, but this database also will contain only those farmers who are having land. Landless farmers, it is almost double, or rather same size of what we have. See, around 14 crores means another 12 crores will be the landless farmers. So for them, there is no database. So we have to create, of course, Aadhaar is there, but then the PMJDY accounts are there. Those database also can be accessed. Some analytics can work on that, and we can find out through their operations and all who will be the likely landless laborer. So the ENA platform, ag markets, a lot of soil health card is there. Jivika Keti platform, then the Swamita scheme, where the farmer land, his house title is given in the Abadi lands. Then the private digital initiatives, of course, all of you are here in that. These names are just we have put it. So we have to now overcome the limited scale and low adoption. For that, an agency at the national level only can do that, and aggregate the activities, partner with these players, and have an orchestrated development. So otherwise, in a disaggregated way, see, even in the agri value chain, one specialty is that I try to now create some financial products for agri value chain. Then I realized, when I went a little deeper, each agri value chain is different, and it is even if we say rice value chain, but rice value chain in Karnataka will be different from that of Andhra or that of Punjab. So areas, and in between varieties also there will be different, basmati rice, non-basmati rice. Similarly, so each agri value chain is area specific, variety specific, and the way in which the farmers deal, that also matters when you chart out an agri value chain. So there is no single agri value chain. We can have on a theoretical level, we can have some idea, but then it has to be a disaggregated, and at the field level, multiple agri value chains aggregated at the national level. Products also accordingly will change. So when I try to map financial products with that of agri value chain, then we need to do a lot of financial engineering. So for that, we have to escrow the cash flow. Whatever cash flow is happening, see, in the warehouse financing, banks try to escrow cash flow through that warehouse receipts, or through key sheds that whatever warehouses they have, one key was kept with the bank, but then leakages happened. Now we have to create a value chain where cash flows are escrowed and leakages are kept to minimum, and this can happen only through digital means, and that is the area. And then we have to give it to bank, and they should have belief that otherwise they are dealing with public money, And unless they see, because if you go for a project-based financing, we will not look at the assets created. We look at the cash flows, and it is a cash flow-based financing which is happening. So in agri value chain also, we are trying to approach that in that way. But for that, the digitization of the value chain is very important. And for some of our investee companies, we are working with them in Bangalore, in Karnataka, and also TraceX is one company which we are working with them. And also in Pune also we are trying, and in Punjab also we are trying to do some pilots. And we'll try to develop some models and demonstrate it to banks. Because when NABARD does that, I think my test of the SBI also will come in. Even in fact, my SBI is now looking for these pilots to fund. So what we are trying is that we are trying to now create a base data and then make it accessible to players. For that, I'll come to the next slide. You can just go to the next slide. So these sector reforms, I'll skip next. So here, so we have to now anchor digitization for the rural sector. In fact, Andhra Pradesh has taken a lead in that in terms of digitizing a lot of our agricultural activities. So we are also learning from that exercise. In fact, we are in close touch with the Andhra Pradesh the government, and we are also contributing to that development. So we will be trying to develop a core technology platform, set standards, and enable integration. That is what we are trying to do, and we will be institution agnostic. And we'll try to create this platform which can be accessed by you, of course, with all security standards. For that, we are taking some steps. I'll come to that in next slide. But one thing, the agri node or agri stack or the India stack is there. So now there are talk about agri stack, working on this India stack, whatever personalized digitized data are there. Whether we can now digitize the transaction-based data also in the agri stack, and then and combine these two and provide to players so that they can escrow this cash flow, and then banks can come in and finance those cash flows. So unless the credit flows, the development, the credit is a multiplier for development. So we also believe in NABARD, the fundamental principle is that credit-led development. For having credit, or helping people to access credit, that is the development role which we are to play. So if people can access credit at their own will, then any commercial organization can come and work it. But we have 30% of the farmers still unbanked. So we need to help them out in accessing credit in terms of creating database, their databases, a rural credit score also we are trying to build up. Next. So here, so these three initiatives: data warehouse, PAX computerization, ONDC. You might have heard about these things. So data warehouse, we are not viewing data warehouse which we are going to set up as data warehouse for NABARD. No, it is for the data warehouse for the sector. So that way, on a modular approach, we'll build upon as we go along. First, we'll try to digitize and make it into the data warehouse, whatever data we have, and then we'll aggregate the sector, whatever data we can access, and then create the base for the Agri-Tech players to work on. Then PAX computerization, we have right now close to 1 lakh PAX, that is primary agricultural credit societies, and close to 9 crore members are there. But then this data is now in the physical form. So PAX computerization will give us wealth of data. Of course, these are all landed farmers, and we are now trying to move to landless farmers also through dairy societies and such other things. That will come in the next phase. First, the credit societies will get digitized, and that legacy data also will digitize, and then we'll store in the data warehouse, which can be accessed. Then the ONDC, Open Network for Digital Commerce. We are the first investors into the ONDC, that is Open Network. You might have heard about that. That just like NPCI is the Indian counterpart of Visa or Master. So ONDC is the Indian counterpart for Amazon or Flipkart. So we were the unlikely first investor, because everybody asked why NABARD is going to invest here. 10% stake we have taken, but we told that we have to onboard all our partners, NGOs, farmer producer organizations, and SHG groups, where whoever is having something to sell should be enabled to demonstrate that or display that in this platform. For that, a capacity building fund also we have created, and we have done a hackathon with ONDC recently for finding out solutions to 9 problems identified for farmer producer organizations, and it has come out nicely. And the results, we the whatever tech stack which they have developed, it will be onboarded to the platform of ONDC. So that way we are not being a passive investor, we are being an active investor, we are assisting for those activities as well. So these 3 initiatives will be in the back office for any Agri-Tech initiative which you as a private sector player are going to take. Next. Okay. So now this will be my last slide. How we are assisting startups so far. We started with a proprietary fund in 2004, and then we branched out into Agribusiness Incubation Center. In fact, these 2 predates my joining NABARD. In fact, when I joined the first sanctions for Agribusiness Center, we have 7 Agribusiness Centers. 6th sanction was to AgHub. So that was the first file I handled, and I sanctioned that. And then we gave one more Agribusiness Center to Gujarat. After that, we took a pause. We thought that no, we'll now see the last 3 years, whatever we have done, whether we need to change any of our policies, procedures, so that based on our experience, we have to now refine our policy. So we have paused at Agribusiness Center for the time being, and then we branched out NAB Ventures, which is a 500 crore fund with a green shoe of another 100 crores. That also is fully committed, and that so far we have invested in close to 12 companies, of which 2 we have already exited and we got good money. But then we are not here for money. But then money is also there. If we make investments in say 50 companies, at least if 2 or 3 companies click with 4x or 5x valuation or even 10x or becoming a unicorn, we'll be very happy, so that all others will be cross subsidized with that. So NAB Ventures 500 crores, we have already invested close to 200 crores, and another 300 crores is ready, and we may be in the subsequent round of capital raising also we may assist. Then we came out with the capital fund, which is a quasi equity debt for the startups through our subsidiaries. So we have 3 financing subsidiaries, and they are also mandated to lend to startups, so that startups may not get funds from any other commercial organization because it is too risky. So now we created a fund and gave us a grant to the subsidiary, and they will lend, and it is their responsibility to take it back also. Then the last one, the blended capital fund, which is based on our success in NAB Ventures. The last Union Finance Ministry's announcement on the budget, there is a blended capital fund which is coming for Agri-Tech and rural tech or food tech. The corpus is not decided, but we have recommended a corpus of 5,000 crores, and that will be stationed in NABARD. And so the contours of that we are working out. There is a procedure in the government to get the sanctions and all. So we are going through that process, and most probably in another 3 months, that fund also will start working. And actually, we want to make it as a catalyst for attracting more capital from other financial institutions. 5,000 crore, of which 10% will be given by NABARD, remaining by the government. And then we will also attract other FIs, public sector banks, or any entity who is interested in to contribute to such a fund. So that kitty will be somewhere around 7,500. So what I meant to say is that money will not be a problem for the right person. Of course, there will be a lot of checks and balances while we utilize this money. Still, you need not worry about money if you have a good business, or rather a good technology idea. And then for frugal innovations also, we are thinking about small contributions. Anyway, our regional offices are empowered with sanctioning some pilot projects and such other things. Through that also, they're assisting small ventures. That will continue, but at the larger scale, at the head office level, we'll take larger, maybe equity assistance and such other things we'll take care. So I think this is the last slide. Can you next? Yeah. So to sum up, NABARD also realizes that technology should come. I am not a techie, but I should understand technology. But in my previous experience, I was handling IT in Canara Bank here, and also risk management. So I can understand the nomenclatures, what you say, tech people say. But now, from the social angle, whatever we are doing, we have to marry it with the technology which you are bringing in. And there should be some value addition to the society. And whatever growth which we need to have, the next round of growth should come from agri-rural area. World is looking to India. So there should be disruptive change. The fourth revolution, which I have referred to, should happen and should happen in India. And India is the best place to have that revolution. The third revolution or the green revolution, which we borrowed from outside, but then the fourth revolution, it should, technology is already there. Bangalore, we are in the Silicon Valley of India. I don't think, and then we have to now find ranchos, the proverbial idiots who can have disruptive intervention and take this matter forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shaji. That was such a wonderful speech. By the way, you're in the right place to find ranchos. Welcome back. Thank you so much for such an inspiring keynote and for us to know a little more. We have Professor Trilochan Shastri joining in. I'd just like to acknowledge his presence here. He was a part of NABARD eons ago. We also have Professor Gopal Naik who's come in. So over to the next piece of the agenda for today. After that very inspiring note from Dr. Shaji. Thank you so much, sir, for coming in from Mumbai and sharing your thoughts. NSRCEL and all of us are looking forward to see how we could continue to collaborate with NABARD. So over to the next piece for today. It's the case study release for which we've all been waiting. And we have been working on 3 cases together as a series. However, for today, we would be releasing the case study on TraceX. And this focus on this in terms of the theme is more on blockchain and traceability. That is the solution that TraceX technology provides. We have Srivatsa, the founder, along with his team here for today. Warm welcome to you. Please come on in. And we have Professor Gopal Naik for bringing in the academic side and the theory and practice mix in terms of knowledge. Thank you so much, sir. Could I request you to join us? And we'll go over to the next cases in a bit, but so the way we're going to go about this is we're going to be bringing in different angles to work on the case studies. Like you all are aware, normally case studies are used during the sessions at classes, especially management classes. And so we have an equal mix of academia, entrepreneurship, and enablers to bring in different angles of this thought. So we'll have Professor Gopal share about how he went through that and helped us stitch this together. We'll have Srivat share his journey partially and talk about how his journey has been, where he started, why he started this off. So the way the whole case studies have been built, and I'd like to acknowledge the CTL team's presence here. Thank you so much, Lopamudra and Jacqueline, for joining us today. I wish we had Professor Jishnu and probably, sorry, is he coming in? Is he joining in? No, all right. But thanks to him for helping us take this forward, and especially Dr. Chetan as well. So with all of this, there's been a mix. There are different angles to this. And if it was not for the CTL team supporting us on tying this up smoothly, I think it would have been difficult. So over to Professor Gopal Naik to share his thoughts on the journey and then to listen into the entrepreneur. Over to you, sir.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. When Mukta contacted me regarding this case study, I was very happy to be associated with this because I had worked with TraceX earlier. We had done a policy paper for Government of India on blockchain application in agriculture. So this was interesting for us to write this case, essentially trying to see how TraceX has been able to apply blockchain to a very interesting, situation of agriculture, particularly the seed technology. All agriculture value chains generally have this problem of trust. They are fragmented, and it really needs some systems, integrated systems, which can create this trust among the various participants. I think blockchain is probably one solution which can actually do that. So it is in that context, application of blockchain in any agriculture value chain is going to be quite useful. In fact, they have applied it to dairy and many other agriculture value chains now. But this, writing this case study has been very, very interesting. Essentially, trying to apply or develop a high-tech solution for an unorganized sector by a startup. So it's all a lot of credit to them, TraceX, who have put in a lot of effort. So this basically talks about the challenges that are there for startups in a high-tech situation, especially in unorganized sector. Another dimension of this particular case study is ecosystem development or ecosystem support. That's where Agri-Hub plays a major role, because you may have the technology, but there has to be a use case so that it can be understood. It can be, you can look at its, output, and many others can follow it and so on. And that's where Agri-Hub has been very useful or very supportive in making this technology happen. And that also we thought, it's very good to bring in, so that, especially when you use it in situations like training, maybe officers from Government of India and so on, or state departments, I would be very useful input to them. So we expect this case to be utilized quite a bit, especially in entrepreneurship, as well as role of government in encouraging or developing sectors like this. So we hope that this will be used widely, and of course, I wish all of them, all the best.
But Professor Gopal, there's much more that he's been doing that he hasn't shared all of the story. If you all ever get a chance to read the paper that he's written on blockchain, it's very, very insightful. Over to you, Srivat, to share your journey and how do you think this is going to help, and what you've been doing as well.
Sure, thank you. Firstly, it's a great honor to be here. Thanks so much, both NSRCEL and AgHub, for giving us this opportunity to be here in the first place. I strongly believe this room has full of those well-wishers that have been very integral part of our startup story. I'm going to get a bit emotional because while I was sitting here, I could connect each and every dot on how each and every individual and organizations that are here today have been, without their support, I don't think we would have been where we are today. I just want to go back a few years and then connect to that. It's exactly the same classroom that I was sitting back in 2014 when I was doing my executive general management program. I would be sitting here for one long year. This is where I was. Little did I know that I would come back here to have a privilege like this to be able to share my experience. I'm truly humbled with it. As part of our one of the courses that we were doing, we were supposed to do a project, and we picked up a project to study where is the farmer going to spend his money on. That's a small project that we took up during my executive general management program studies, which led us to the fields in the district of Tumkur, which is where I largely come from. I was brought up in Tumkur. We went and interviewed about 100 farmers, figured out they spend a lot of money on their inputs, what inputs, fertilizers, chemicals, and so on and so forth. That we came back and prepared a small report and gave it to my professor. He said, look, good, you've done your academic job, but then looks like there is some interesting statistics that has come out of it. Why don't you go and talk to NSRCEL? There comes NSRCEL. The reason the first point of contact is this classroom. Second point of journey is NSRCEL. When we went into NSRCEL, they said, in fact, I think Professor Bhagwatula was running back then, sir. After that, you are leading that. So back then when we, and Professor Bhagwatula taught us entrepreneurship as well while we were here. He said, go and speak to somebody called Naga Prakasam, who probably most of us here would know. He said, look, you've got some interesting study. The study was about, on a simple app showing what are the different diseases that a crop has and what is to be done by farmers to do it. Little did we know back then that there is going to be AI and ML, all of that solutions, which is going to be automatically identifying all that, right? When we went in there, that was our first aspiration that sort of engulfed in us, thinking that we could do something here in NSRCEL. And followed by that, we put together a pilot of our first, my partner is Anil Nadig. He's not here today, but I wanted to take his name out because we both have been in this for the last 7 years. We both, when we spoke to Naga Prakasam, he said, look, the idea of just giving an information app is not going to take you too long. You have to do something very significant, right? Which adds value to the impact to the ecosystem, which is when we started thinking about a market linkages for the farmer producer companies. That was a pilot that we did when we had our day jobs. We didn't have the confidence to leave our day jobs and do it, right? Then NSRCEL gave us the confidence. Again, that is where I want to go back and connect the dot. That but if NSRCEL had not agreed to incubate us back in 2014, 15, I don't think we would have had enough, courage to leave our jobs and then do what we're doing today. That was our first startup, got incubated here. When running Jiva Bhoomi, we understood complexity. What is Jiva Bhoomi? Jiva Bhoomi is a simple model where we directly work with farmer producer companies and connect them to consumers like I and you, urban consumers. The farmers that grow food using without any chemicals, fertilizer, and so on and so forth. When running Jiva Bhoomi, we bumped into a problem that when we were talking to mass market, they said, I don't know Srivatsan or Anil Nadi, so why should I trust any produce from Jiva Bhoomi, for example? That was a realization for us that traceability matters when something specific is claimed in the supply chain. We started working on digitization of platforms. And during that, actually, I should recollect Dr. Kalpana ma'am and Vijay, who were running AIDEA. Again, all of them are in this room. We got incubated in AIDEA as Jiva Bhoomi, which gave us a larger outlook into agri network. Until then, we were not known by, or rather, we didn't know how the agricultural network in India itself is, right? So that is AIDEA, who was very integral part of our upbringing. We graduated from AIDEA, then realized the problem of solving for supply chain in digitization is not just for our own problem, it's a larger global food and supply chain problem to solve for. Then the idea of we started building the tech platform, which is today TraceX, right? And TraceX, when we started working on TraceX, again, AgHub incubated us last year. Again, the same, well-wishers are here in this room. So, but for AgHub, I don't think we would have made a significant contribution in seed traceability, where we got an opportunity. That's what ma'am was mentioning as well. The idea of AgHub was to actually give entrepreneurs like us to test our innovations actually on the ground. That's the hardest part for us to do. And that's the opportunity we got with, and along with a small grant to support ourselves back then. Right, so that is our journey. And again, all through the pandemic, with Professor Nayak, we've had several interactions about writing various proposals, various conversations about blockchain and understanding so many more things from him, exchanging notes. He is here with us today, helping us build our case study, which is getting released today. Again, that's again a point that I want to contact. Last but not the least, April, we raised our first round of capital. NAB Ventures, which is subsidiary of NABARD, supported us with $1 million fund. They are here. So that's why I said it is truly humbling for us to be here. And this is the ecosystem that has brought us up. Extremely, extremely grateful to you. And thank you. I want to take this opportunity to thank all of you. And at TraceX, what we do is connect the supply chain and right from the farmer, first mile farmer, to the consumer, on a blockchain network to establish sustainability, traceability, and transparency in supply chain. I'm happy to talk to each one of you more later during the day, but that's all I wanted to say, and thank you, and looking forward to the case study. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Srivatsa. Wonderful to hear your journey. Not just, I mean, from the time you were a student to Professor Suresh's classes and now back. By the way, he has a train to catch and he's about to leave in the next 10 minutes. So it's literally like the Cinderella's carriage turning into a pumpkin. But thank you so much for being here. I'm glad you made it. And that's one of the reasons we had to alter the schedule a bit to accommodate this. This was a last minute change. But nevertheless, great to hear the story, and even more gladder to hear the leanings of how we started off with Jiva Bhumi and then went on. If it wasn't for AgHub, our partner, actually suggesting that these are some cases we can look on, we shortlisted about 7 startups to work with. And then we kind of toyed with the idea to see how much progress they've really been able to make. Because for a case study, looking at it from the point of view of a class, of running a class, what is it that the student in the class is going to learn? What's it about the entrepreneurship journey? Where did they begin? What did they start with? What did they decide to resolve and find a solution for? What are they building at the moment? Did they change? Did they pivot? Are they doing something different? So all of this kind of, is some parameters that we valued. And while we looked at 7 of them, we finally drilled down to 3, and Trace6 is one of them. I'm so glad to see this case study finally being released today. It's actually ready to be taken in the class. The other 2 are series which will continue to follow suit over a period of time, because we started on a little later. So thank you so much, Srivatsa and Professor Gopal. Thank you so much for your time. And I'd also like to acknowledge your team. Sunil, who heads marketing. He's a part of marketing and sales, and he's been a part of Trace6, who joined him very, very recently. So thank you so much, and good luck. Let's hope that we continue to work. And while you leave, I'd just like to share this with you as a reference. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. We'll go over to the next case study in the series for today. We have Professor Rahul Dey. Sir, thank you so much for coming in. This case that he's been guiding us is on Krishi Tantra, and we have the founder Sandeep Kondaji. He's come in here. This is a firm that focuses on soil technology, farm data acquisition, and related cloud services. And like you all know, we've given the whole chassis of how this all works. So over to Professor Rahul Dey and to Sandeep Kondaji to share the different facets of their journey.
Thanks, Mukta. I will be brief. I've just interacted with them once on a Zoom call. I'm meeting them for the first time. But I have read the draft of the case prepared by Jackie right there. So I teach AI, and what I'll just say is I'm teaching a course right now. I teach the technology side of it, technology management part of it. And it's actually, that's the easy part. So I teach the easy stuff, they do the hard stuff, which is why these cases are very important for us. We just have a draft of the case, and this is about basically something that seems easy. It's about soil testing. It seems easy. You just pick up soil and test it, send it to a lab. But it is extremely difficult, and it's very hard for farmers in very remote areas to do this task correctly. When I heard about this, I immediately jumped at it because I have to tell you this story publicly. I attended a conference close to 15 years ago, an AI conference in which somebody presented a paper on the same problem, soil testing. And I recall they were also using AI. They had an instrument which they would insert in the ground, and they would have a laptop next to it, and it would take 12 hours to do the analysis. So you're waiting with your laptop for 12 hours. So I was sitting in the audience and I asked these very prominent researchers, so what's the point? And they got a little upset with me. But the point is that the timing and the value of the test is very dependent on how quickly and efficiently it is done. And also it has, if it is taking 12 hours, it's probably going to be very expensive. So when I heard about this, this is what I wanted to point out, that building the technology in a certain way, solving the technology problem is what we guys are very good at. But solving the real problem is they have to do this. And it is very impressive what they are doing. So when the case is ready, which I hope will be very soon, I will take it to class and show it as an example of the technology solves about 1/10 of the problem. 90% of the problem is actually putting it in the field and getting it to work. And that has to be cost effective, valuable, and also relevant for them. So that's what I want to do with the case. I'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Rahul. I remember this initial conversation when we had with Digitization Tanta team, and you were stating the same thing. I would also like to add that most of the case studies, while the professors guide us and give us information, we've also captured interventions that the AgHub team has done, as well as the CTL team, who's played an important part in actually interviewing the founder and asking, where were you, where did you go, how did you start off, what went wrong or what went right, and what do you think you could have done better when you look back at it. So thanks especially to Jacqueline for taking time out for all those captures and discussions that we've had, multiple conversations to figure out why is this happening this way and what could have been different. How are you different than the others? There are many now who also do soil technology testing. So over to you, Sandeep, to share your journey.
Sure.
Thanks to Lopa as well.
Yeah, it's a very special moment for me today here, because just before I get to my introduction, I did my graduation in engineering. So that was in 2006, and 2005 I gave a CAT exam, and it was one of my ambition also that I will do my MBA from one of the premiers, and I only wanted to do either of Bangalore or Ahmedabad. Bangalore because I belong to Karnataka, and it's one of the premier, and the other one I had in my mind was Ahmedabad. So I thought that Gujarati wind is something which is having business, so I wanted that as well. But neither of that happened, so I got only 91 percentile that time. So eventually I then dropped that idea and then moved ahead in my life. But God has his own way, so I'm thankful and very glad that I'm here today after 17 years. So even though I didn't study in any of the classroom, but this one of the ambition which I had that I will have something to relate with IIM Bangalore is fulfilled. So thank you very much for that, AgHub, and also NSRCEL, and also to Professor Day and the entire wonderful team. So we had various conversations, and it was very interesting, and the way it was the information were dig from me. It was something which is something which will again keep me grounded and keep thinking about myself, about all the journey that I had. So thank you very much for that. So I started my entrepreneurial journey in 2011. So 2011, I started my very first venture in Muscat. So that was a trading company which I used to run. So that was into telematics domain. I did some good amount of money in that, and 2015-16 when I was in Dubai for one of my assignment, so I came across a hydroponic cultivation. So that was in a container. So I saw that was the very first time for me that in agriculture domain and in a desert, right? So where they are introducing technology to that level, where they are doing everything precise. So they are feeding nutrient, they are controlling the temperature, they are keeping, it's like an ICU, it's a complete ICU. It was like very fascinating and something out of the world for me. And coming from a technology background and always having interest to do something in business, so something which caught my attention, and I thought that India being such a resourceful country, we have God's own country here. We have, and I belong to a farming family myself. So are we forgetting the roots? Are we doing something wrong? So much wrong that, farmers are ending up. So I'm just, farming and agriculture is something only that I used to see in only news, right? And the news always talk about hanging farmers. So that is the only picture as soon as whenever agriculture used to, at least in my mind. So then I thought that I have to do something in this, and it seems to be an opportunity. It seems to be an opportunity where I can build something here rather than doing the age-old trading or anything. So that was something which then I sold my company in 2016 and I came back to India. So I started farming myself. So I did 6 months of farming in my ancestral property that is near to Tumkur. So there I found out I wanted to go through this entire journey of agriculture. So one aspect of it, the very first thing, because I didn't know what to do, so I met one of the KVK centers, the scientists there. So I went and I just asked about what all things I need to do, what is the package. I want to grow and I want to learn agriculture in a scientific way, not what my uncle or my ancestors used to follow. So then he suggested me that you have to do soil testing, you have to apply the kind of fertilizer that is there, crop rotation, and these are the seasons during which you can grow these and this, and if, then the profitability comes. So theory explained very well, and I just followed that. I just followed and I gave him the sample. I got him the soil sample, for which I don't have the soil test report till today, right? So that was, so he told me that, okay, now the very next thing, now it was again blind. So then I had to again get something on my own assumptions I did. So finally I learned. So there were some of the problem statements that were there in front of me. So there were issues with supply chain or the cost of production that were there, and then the marketability of the produce which was there, quality of production. So many things were there. But one aspect which was there was the fundamental, right? Imagine today healthcare without diagnosis. Imagine you being treated without being diagnosed, without being tested, without your blood being tested, or without anything. You are being just given chemicals, right? So finally, it is about life science, and life science being treated without diagnosis is something where it has led, and there is no information that is being relayed further, right? So you don't know what has to be grown at what time and what combination of chemical at what quantity has to be applied, and you're starting on a blind foot, and then eventually it is not known anywhere across the value chain, right? So you have supply chain, you have fintech which is going to provide to them. So fintech doesn't know what is how much quantum that person requires, that soil requires. So it is totally disoriented in terms of the information exchange, and the fundamental and the foundation of agriculture is there, and that is what that is how Krishi Tantra was born. And then we thought that we have to bring this technological intervention here and build something out of it which can fill this gap or start this gap to be filled. So that is when we thought that we'll get to there, and Krishi Tantra was created. And in this journey, now I am from a technology background, had some of business experience, but now this is science, and I don't have any knowledge about agriculture science. I have never studied anything about agriculture. So that is when AgHub. So AgHub is the place, it's a temple of knowledge about all this agriculture. So where I gained all those knowledge, experience. So they helped us validate this, because again, accuracy, now it's about getting information is one hand, and getting that validated and approved, whether this is right or wrong, what we have done. So that is on another hand. So that is when AgHub helped us with connecting those aspects of it, gave that knowledge to us, connected to their scientists. We worked with them, we corrected whatever we had unlearned some of the things, learned new things. That is how we got validated. And today Krishi Tantra is there almost in every part of the segment, that sector that we are working. So corporates, like big corporates like Reliance, we have ITC, we have startups like Dehat, we have Waycool, we have Absolute Foods, and many other startups, whoever are providing advisory to the farmers and getting their products delivered and positioning their products, are using Krishi Tantra's platform. And also NAB Ventures. So now to build a whole this thing, so to equip ourselves with financial, to the capital requirement which was required. So NAB Ventures funded us. So in 2020 November, so NAB Ventures funded us with about a similar 1 million round which we had raised, and because of which now we are there in with the government sectors. Recently we did with emerging technologies as part of NEGPA, National E-Governance, and very soon we will also be the part of the soil health card program and initiative also at a national level. So thank you for this wonderful this putting across all this experience in detail and much more explaining about this potential of this, how and where this can be evolved, as sir was rightly mentioning about the artificial intelligence, bringing how this soil data can be further transformed into something different possibilities which can which can benefit the overall agri value chain. In fact, that is something which I am also very much eager to learn and more, having more such kind of interactions with Professor. Thank you once again. Thank you one and all.
Thank you so much, Sandeep. So we've heard what Professor Rahul has to say about it and how this case might probably evolve. So this case will be released probably in a few months, Professor. I think as in it will be ready for the class usage. I understand the reason behind this smile. That's because the professor has a lot of feathers in his cap. I mean, he dons a lot of roles, and it's been really difficult to get him. So he asked me precisely what time should I enter in, and we actually had a plan B in place. We had Jacqueline to fill in case he didn't come in today. But thank you so much for being here. So whenever, I'm sure it will see the light of day and will be used in the classroom sessions at some point in time. But thank you so much, Sandeep and the team, for coming in and joining us and being here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Over to the third case study for today. We have the Satyuk team, Dr. Satkumar Tomar, as well as Yukti, his wife. She's also his partner in business, and they seem to be doing a wonderful job, very, very grounded. When I met him and his team, Pramod and a few others who've come in. Thank you so much for coming in. So this case clearly is on the data and data services for a B2B platform on the SaaS platform and how they're making things easier. Professor R. Srinivasan, warm welcome. He has been the academic guide for this and helping us to take this forward. Over to Professor Srini to share more about the case, and then to the founder as well.
Thank you. I am a professor of strategy and I teach courses on platforms. And when Mukta reached out to me saying that here is an opportunity to write a case on Satyuk, and Satyuk looks like a platform, I said, yeah, this is an opportunity. So as an opportunistic teacher, I jumped into this and said, okay, let me first understand whether it is a platform. So with all the skepticism, we had a first Zoom call where we discussed whether it is a platform and looked at all of what they are trying to do. I really don't think this case needs to be that entrepreneurial journey as much as the platform elements of this. When I say platforms, I talk about multi-sided platforms which bring multiple sets of users together, which intermediate between multiple sets of users, provide for network effects, and be able to create value to multiple user groups. So I looked at this platform and I looked at not just one platform, it looked at multiple second, third, fourth platforms. And then I realized that there is something in the course or in the platform theory on platforms is not as evolved or mature as most other disciplines are. So in the theory of this thing, there are very little empirical evidence around a concept called coring. Coring is a concept where a platform builds an algorithm, like for instance, an algorithm or a use case, to put it in English, and users start to serve or solve multiple problems. Use the same algorithm to solve multiple problems. Use the same network effects to address multiple needs. So I saw the coring opportunity, I jumped onto this, and we've had a wonderful meeting where we discussed each of these platforms. We've been able to uncover the coring that is going on here. I will leave it to the team to tell you what that core algorithm is, but across the 4 platforms that they are doing, they have the core around the farmer and being able to enable the farmer with data from the satellite network, from remote sensing satellites, use the remote sensing satellite data to be able to enable the farmer. Quite a lot of times the agricultural, this thing is about any Agri-Tech, any AgTech will improve farmer income. That's how everybody pulls it out. And I don't believe that everything needs to improve farmer income. Like, we should improve diagnosis, we should improve variety of other things to agriculture. The entire value chain, somewhere we should be able to impact. And what Satyam does is about being able to provide them with information to be able to make informed decisions. To be able to pull that out and stretch it all the way to improve incomes and all that may happen, may not happen. For a farmer to be able to make informed decisions is a great story. What the coring does with, what Satyam does with coring is also about being able to use that information that the farmers can utilize to be able to also send it to financial institutions, to be able to help financial institutions leverage that information to make informed decisions, to be able to do input companies. Input companies may be able to use that to make well-informed decisions. Output value chain in terms of the product value chain can make informed decisions, as well as variety of other ecosystem partners. So the idea is about putting that farmer and the data at the center for everyone to be able to make informed decisions. That's the coring opportunity that Satyam provides. The case is going to take a little while because we want to tease out the theory well from this case. So once we build that theory from the case, we have the first draft, we have the diagrams, the network diagrams, the architecture diagrams are all in place, but we want to tease it out well, run it through them. Plus, we also want to run it through the theoretical frame that this works very well. And this is going to be one of the very few cases that are available in the world, apart from the traditional anecdotal examples of, YouTube is used an algorithm to do, Google search algorithm is used everywhere. Those kind of anecdotal evidences don't necessarily lend strong impact on theory, but this is going to be a significant contribution to that theory. So over to you, Tomar.
Thank you so much, Professor.
So my brief journey is, my name is Satkumar and I come from UP and from a farming background. So I have done farming till the age of 2021, and of course, not a full-time farmer, studying and then working in the field. Then I came to Bangalore to do my master and PhD from ISC Bangalore. And I was in the water resource department. And the challenge we have in water resources is it's easier to get water resource data of US than getting the data of, let's say, Kaveri or Kabini. Gauges is not there. There are many other issues. And ISC has very good collaboration with ISRO. So I started working with the satellite data, how we can leverage satellite data to estimate various water resources information like soil moisture and all those kind of things. And then I went to France, did postdoc, studied more deeper into satellite remote sensing. And then coming back, we started this company. And then I realized, the same problem we have in water resources. In agriculture, we have much more deeper problem. There is no, the instrumentation, etc. at the farm scale level. So how we can capture the data? It's not feasible to put, like I was discussing in the Department of Agriculture in Karnataka, there are about 1 crore farms inside the Karnataka. So you can imagine how many we have in the entire country. So it's not feasible to put sensor in each and every farm. So how we can leverage satellite remote sensing data to estimate various information like, which pest may come, disease may come, how is the crop health looking, what kind of nutrients we have in the soil, what kind of fertilizer farmer needs to apply. So these are, like DMD has very nicely provided all the challenges agriculture is facing. So we are not working for all of them, but 4 sectors we are working on. Like for farmers, if you look at I am just providing this agrobat advisory from long time, but this is very generic advisory, same for everybody. But if you look at, there are 2 farms, they may be having next to each other, but having very different issues. The soil type is different, the seed is different, the sowing date is different. So for every individual farm, we provide the customized advisory. For 2 neighboring farms, the information may be different, advisory may be different. So this is what I'm trying to do, work with the farmer, and then having agri input company on the other side, which can get to know what farmer needs and provide the best quality the products they need. In the finance side also, most of the transactions are informal. There is no credit history, etc. through the bank. So we leverage the satellite remote sensing data. Many of the core algorithms are same, but we customize for different applications. Look at what kind of yield farmer might be having in last, let's say, 3 year or 5 year, what's likely production, what's the likely income. So all these we can generate through the satellite data and understand the flood risk, the drought risk. So all this credit profile we can create with the help of satellite data without needing any other information. Similarly, for the crop insurance, currently we have largely area-based approach. The entire area will get the compensation or nobody will get. And there are many challenges on the ground. I work with, sometimes it's even difficult to fight, which farm insurance companies has insured. So we look at the satellite data, we look at this digital land record, and then we try to estimate what kind of losses farmers are facing, whether there was loss due to flood or drought or some other issue, or there was no loss. Many times what happens, we take insurance so that we get the money when we are in the need. It takes sometimes 2-3 years also for the payment to get settled. So it's very long time. So the insurance does not serve the purpose if you get money after 3 years. If I take health insurance, I need the payment before getting discharged from the hospital. If I get the payment after 3 years, it's not serving the purpose. So same issues which being faced with the farmer. So we provide the immediate information which helps farmer also, which help crop insurance companies also to see what is happening on the ground. Then we work for the agriculture companies to provide the information what is happening at the large scale. And in all this, the products we have developed, the main challenge we face, I am from satellite remote sensing, very well, was postdoc, PhD. Those things I can easily handle. But how do you make technology work for farmer? That's the main challenge. So we did one pilot with AgHub, madam is there, in Telangana. So Pramod was handling it, and I was working in UP because I have language barrier. So every day we'll make a product, so it to farmer, is it understandable? Then they will give some, no, it's not working. So then again we'll try something else and then again go. So it took nearly 1 year to have a product where message we can communicate. Technology was ready, but it has to be very, very simple, very user friendly. Like, when we started developing the app, I realized to get one farm information, I need to click 100 times. It's boring for me. How a farmer will manage? Then we rework the UI, with one click, you should get everything. So many challenges in the journey, and then, we are trying to overcome. I have a very good team with me. Akhya, who handles satellite remote sensing, Pramod is into sales, Purva handles softwares, and Yukti is from HR background, so she handles everybody. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Satkumar Kumar. It was very interesting to come over to your office and also understand a little more. I remember our initial hesitation, Professor Srini, if you remember, we were wondering, do we really work with them? What's the kind of stuff we're doing? Because we weren't sure. See, we haven't met you, so we did have our apprehensions, but when we came in, we were really floored by what you did and the kind of work and depth of knowledge you all come across as someone very, very simple, but when we start talking about your work, there's so much of expertise and deep work that's gone in, and each one of you have knowledge in a space that I think builds the kind of team that Tomar is looking at, and he seems to have the right kind of the top layer to keep this running. Professor Srini, anything else that you'd like to share?
I'll make a point.
Yes, sir.
No, NAV Ventures, when they invested in all the companies, or 12 companies they have invested. So in the back office, I was just viewing their business cases. And I was fascinated with this Satyuk case. In fact, Satyuk and one Unnati, I was very fascinated with that because, because of my banking background. You all know that Kisan credit card is there. Kisan credit card came, KCC, is almost 25 years old. Now, almost 7 crore farmers are covered. That means, each and every farmer, there will be transaction at least twice or thrice a year on this 7 crore thing. And for each transaction, there should be a validation by the bank officer. You all know the load in the bank branch is huge. So because of my background in banking, I was just fascinated with this, the satellite remote sensing, and I saw the presentation. In fact, I interacted with you also twice. So we wanted that to be integrated with the loan management system of banks. So 7 crore for accounts to be getting, an officer sitting in branch, instead of going to the field and verifying the data, he can see the satellite data, or in the back office, he need not see. Back office, somebody see and clear it. So that way, now we are in the process of revamping Kisan Credit Card, 25 years of existence of Kisan Credit Card. Now we are we are working on revamped KCC, where these technology tools also will be coming in handy. Also, we are trying to come out with a KCC portal, where it will be a bank agnostic portal. You all know the Prime Minister's ambition is that all the 14 crore PM Kisan beneficiaries should be having a Kisan Credit Card, or they should expressly tell that I do not want. So now we have reached only 50%. Another 7 crore to be reached. Plus, as I said, 10 crore of landless farmers who, as a group, are eligible for JLG KCC. In fact, today, just before I talked, I was receiving a call regarding JLG because Prime Minister's office wanted that what is this JLG and how is it performing? How can we improve upon? Now, his attention has moved to landless agriculturists who are the real agriculturists. So for them, this remote sensing things and all really will work because some geotagging and some remote sensing. Otherwise, there will not be any record for them to show to the bank. So this technology, I think we should take it forward in a larger way, and I think banks will lap up this. And you have to now talk to banks. In fact, we will facilitate that. In fact, we wanted to integrate your technology to our subsidiary as well, FPOs. For FPOs, so there also we can use this actually, so that we can reduce the cost of transactions. So this technology, I'm very fascinated. I will love to associate with your company in future.
Yeah, once in 2 months we have interaction. In fact, we were supposed to have the team Satyukt on 12th and 13th July, but somehow 12th July happened to be our foundation day, due to which we were very busy in our celebration function. So we couldn't invite them. In fact, we are planning to invite the entire team in the next meeting, which we plan to have in somewhere in September. And followed by, we have normally an on-site program normally in an agricultural university. There also we would like to have them, so that the message, whatever technology they have developed, it can percolate to the field, and probably some of the apps what they have developed can be made use by the farming community. That is what the opportunity which we would like to give to the team Satyajit. I hope you will be okay with it.
No, it's very helpful. Today also my team has gone to Mysore to give a demo. So this search we are working with the DDM. In each district they have official, and we are coordinating.
There's a center of excellence for FPOs in Karnataka. I could put you onto them, and then you could see how this could work, because that would be the core. I mean, the center from where you can percolate to a lot more. The impact would be, pretty high. So wonderful to listen to this. And Dr. Chatterjee, wonderful to notice that, you've also been doing the case studies in the backstage and evaluating how each one has been doing. That shows a lot of involvement. Thank you so much, Professor Srini, for sharing this. Any other, you want to share when this would be ready? And so. This will take time, because there's a lot of data that they're all getting together.
why this will take time is not because of the data availability. Why this will take time is to be able to frame the questions right appropriately to the theory around technology platforms. So while we understand agriculture, when we take this to a class, there are people who would understand agriculture and farm as a unit of analysis, but there are people who are going to be, from a technology point of view, to understand the farm. So we want the farm people to understand technology. We want the technology people to understand the farm. And therefore, and the theory around coring has to be teased out. So it is going to take time. Plus, I also have to give respect to my co-authors' full-time roles. They are doing this part-time. Pramod is here.
I'd like to acknowledge their presence as well. Pramod and Sandeep
Sandeep could not join us today.
who are
These
supporting us
two
on this.
people who are working with me on platform theories, and they write cases along with us, along with me. Both of them are in serious senior full-time roles. So we find ways on Saturday afternoons and sometimes midnights to work together. So we will find a way to close this as quickly as possible.
Very well, sir. But I think this would be a beautiful thing they'll come. Yes, sir.
Consider the case to be used in the entrepreneurship for entrepreneurs as well, not just in the PGP classrooms, because I mean, I know that you have to think a little bit more.
No, I think the entrepreneurship story in this one should come a little later than this. Maybe honestly, let them build that momentum when there are at least 7 or 8 different ecosystem partners. Then the entrepreneurship story is useful. Right now, they are taking one ecosystem, basically taking the farmers to banks, taking the farmers to insurance, taking the farm data to everything. Once they get that story about success story, the farmer's success story, or a banker's success story, if Canara Bank tomorrow comes back and says, we've stopped doing field visits, they're able to do the entire thing with Satyuk data. Once they get to that stage, the entrepreneurship story is useful. I think they are about 6 to 9 months away from there. Once they get there is when the entrepreneurship story is wonderful.
2 minutes. Thanks a lot, NSRCEL team. The 3 cases have confirmed what Shaji sir was saying. Just remember, the next generation farmer is a different farmer who is definitely going to be, informed, take decisions on his own. And all these efforts are something which we have been visualizing only as students. But this is, it's really, I feel, comes out of my heart that we are moving towards that. And I think there will be a day when the farmer will be in the center and technology will be actually helping. And these cases are wonderful. Thanks a lot, team.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much, Professor Srini and Satyuk team. Wonderful having you all here and share. And this seems to be a short way of capturing the Nabad's eye. So we need to have you to come in more to the campus. We'd love to. Like, I was actually saying this, but you were on the call. So I said, this is a great place to find your rancho. This is the place, actually. Yes, yes. Absolutely, absolutely. So, sure. And in fact, quite a few of our startups, wouldn't be fair to kind of rattle off the names, but Atri, who's sitting here and who will be on the panel next, is also being supported by NABARD in a way, and most of them. So I think we are all on the right track. It's just that we haven't kind of formalized a collaboration. Sorry, I'm pitching, but yeah, I'd love to do that. And over to the next piece for today, we are looking at the panel discussion. Thank you so much to all the founders who have come in today, the Satyuk team, Professor Srini, Pramod, thanks for coming in, and the CTL team, because I don't know when you'll all, suddenly vanish, so I'm just saying my thanks again. And also to Professor Gopal, thank you so much, sir. And to all the teams who are out here, the Satyuk team, the Tracex team, Krishitanta team, thank you so much, Sandeep, for getting your team together. And the CTL team for helping us put the whole case together and giving us the finishing touches. We've had a lot of conversations, that this is not edited properly, this can't be done this way. Is this the way it really should be? Can we even have a logo on the case study? So many questions. We brought in a lot of people, but I'm glad that it's finally come to some shape. And now I'd request Vijay to kind of come in and take over. Vijay Nadamenti is the CEO of AgHub, and he brings in the angle of both management as well as agri. He's been a part of NARAM, and when I say that, I really don't need even a write-up to talk about the kind of work that he's been doing. He's brought it up literally like a startup of his own, from a place where it began and to where he scaled it up, having NABARD as a partner even in NARAM and then bringing it over here. A-Idea was an incubation center that he was a part of and previously, and we've been interacting on various projects, working together on different spaces, all in the agri and connected. And Dr. Kalpana has been supporting and guiding us. And I would also like to add before I close on the case studies that it wasn't for me hounding Professor Venki, constantly saying, Professor Venki, these are the cases, please tell me whom I could reach out to. And he was like, okay, but the moment I would speak to him, it would take us just 3 minutes to kind of close in on something. Yeah, he's very, very fast. And I've heard some very rave reviews, Professor, about your teaching methods. But we'll talk about this later. Yeah, so it's been really wonderful that he's actually helped me guide this throughout by suggesting who are the professors I can reach out to, what could really should be the objective, and stating how this can be used, looking at it from the classroom point of view, whether it's the entrepreneurship side or a mix of agri and entrepreneurship, how can it really be used? Because when you're looking at the end outcome, that's when you can drive the whole thing. Thank you so much, Professor, for guiding me throughout on this. And Ganesh and Professor Venki giving me the opportunity to kind of take this to an outcome of finally having this long-awaited event. So over to the panel discussion, back to our partners for today. And Vijay Nadimenti has, like I was sharing earlier, scaled up even NARAM, A-Idea, the incubator at NARAM in a very big way. And now he's with the AgHub team. He's been building the team with a very small, lean team. He actually works like a bootstrapped entrepreneur, building in a lot of scale and pivoting it in different cities. And you heard Dr. Kalpana share about what the different spokes that they're looking at, the 3 different spokes and how they're taking it forward. So over to you, Vijay, please come on in. He'll be the moderator today for the panel discussion. And our focus, while we say data analytics helping improve farm experience, I'd like to make this a little broader and say that we look at digitization and technology enabling solutions to reach out to the farmer experience. So with that, I would like to invite Kanishka Chatterjee over to join us. He is a part of the head at PRIZE, the Nudge Foundation, and it's a unique program. I'll actually let him share a lot more about what he does, but what I understand is that it aims to spark innovations in undeserved spaces or probably spaces that haven't got the kind of attention that it deserves, right? And he's also been involved and looking at markets and policy and looking at what are the critical challenges that are there and how they can be taken care of through this. Warm welcome to you to the panel. Thanks for being here. And he's also been involved in the Cisco Agri Challenge, where I mentioned previously, where we partnered as well. And now they're working on one challenge to induce clean drinking water innovations at scale. And that's Ashirvad Water Challenge. I'd like you to say a little more about this. Warm welcome to you. We're joined in by Atri, hi Atri, warm welcome to you once again. He's the co-founder and CEO of Deep Tech Technologies, a startup being incubated at NSRCEL. And they were amongst the first few to be selected to present before the World Bank and the Department of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare in Government of Kerala at Thiruvananthapuram. And they have been involved in a lot of projects. And they've been, especially, I think the focus has been on more on how technology can really enable, solutions and how can it reach the farmers. So they've been working actively with the Kerala government, and I would request Atri to share a little more as we go on. And now I'd also like to involve and invite Sagar. Hi, Sagar. He's a part of Omnivore, and he's based, initially he was at Mumbai, warm welcome to you, but now he's in Bangalore. And he takes care of investment, obviously, in the impact space and especially related to agri. But he also takes care of climate strategy. And then he was initially a part of the team at Bijak. It's an omnivore portfolio company where he was responsible for leading growth and strategy. So he has a BTech in civil and environmental engineering from IIT Madras. So he does mentor college students, which means budding entrepreneurs on the way. Warm welcome to you. And I would request, Dr. Fatna, would you like to join us? All right. Okay. So this will completely be, yeah. So I'll let Vijay take over from here and see how this really travels. So the reason we've looked at a very different portfolio in terms of the panel discussion, one, an enabler, a couple of enablers, a founder, and also an investor, is the dimensions that this conversation could take and how it could impact. What are the different thoughts that come in? So over to Vijay to take over.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks, Mukta, for handing this over to me. That's fine. Am I audible, by the way, like this? Okay, fine. I've got a inbuilt congenital mic with me, so I should be audible. So, everyone, I'm Vijay. I'm representing AgHub for the movement, and I'm an agricultural science professional and a horticultural graduate. I'm an agri person, per se. Since 2003, my graduation is over 2 weeks. When I joined the industry, there was two questions that made me think, where should I be? I was really confused. Should I be the mainstream industry, the like of seed or tech or the other companies which are already in this sector? Or should I be joining into something new thing? So that's where I was figuring out. 2008 is when I joined Premium Farm Fresh, India's first private wholesale mandis. That was the first of its kind venture where I started solving problems on the ground. Usually what happens is, even in the agribusiness industry, we are actually talking about running the existing things. What about solving the unsolved and then build something new? With that quest, in the last 13 years of my agribusiness experience, I've been running agribusiness industries and working with corporates, non-profits, working with farmer producer organizations, building business models for farmers and FPOs. And last 7 years, I've been in the agri-innovation space, building innovations with USAID and also with AID at NAM, building accelerators, India's first agri-UDAN, and then equity funds, and a lot of such interventions which were required for Agri-Tech ecosystem. Why are we talking about Agri-Tech today? Why is it becoming so important, especially in a mainstream management B school and institution of management prominence, the IIM Bangalore? Definitely Agri-Tech is worth discussing. I'll just put a small ecosystem perspective around why are we discussing about Agri-Tech today. Agriculture definitely is the backbone of the country. We talk about a lot of statistics, we speak about it. 70% of the population depending on agriculture, and then almost 18 to 20% of the GDP coming from agriculture. Right, and a lot of people, both primary and secondary population, which is actually dependent on agriculture, especially in the rural hinterlands. When it comes to agriculture, it's always been there, the green revolution, and today the country boasts of being number 1 and number 2 in the production. And we talk about last 40 or 50 years when agribusiness companies have been there. But especially for me, coming from agribusiness industry and at least working with the startup ecosystem, these are two sides of the world. Agri startup ecosystem is just in a boiling point today. When did it start actually? 2010, probably, when we hear about small instances of, venture capital. Probably the first ever venture capital in India that we could have heard about, Omnivore. Talking about venture capital. Hardly any Agri-Tech existed then, but Omnivore had that vision. Mark Khan and Dinesh, all of these founders had that vision that yes, There's a time that is going to be for mainstreaming agri-tech startups. We had a couple of more instances of CIM Ahmedabad or Wilgrow building agri portfolios, investing into agri-tech companies. The first agri incubator per se started in 2005 with Agri-Tech. They've been building on a lot of entrepreneurship models pretty much from Hyderabad. So this is how today slowly from 2005 we have slowly the incubators growing up and the investors growing up. What are the stats speaking about? Today, if you talk about investment, almost $1 billion was invested in agri-tech space. Since 2014 till today, almost last 7 years, $1 billion invested in agri-tech, number one. Last year itself, $686 million was invested out of 48 deals in agri-tech startups. And then we are talking about more than 3,200 plus startups in India, Startup India initiative. A lot of these agri-tech startups which are registered under Startup India initiative. NASSCOM talks about 700 plus matured startups. Then we have more than 100 plus angels and angel networks and venture capitals which are talking about agri-tech industries. And last but not the least, after the advent of the Startup India initiative, there are a lot of incubators today which are talking about agri-tech and agriculture and agri-businesses. Today we have almost odd about 100 agri-business incubators. To start a few, the likes of DSC, which actually mainstream incubators under ICRISAT, AIDEA NAM, IAMR, NutriHub, and also NRC Meet. And for that matter, they also supported IARI, Pusa Krishi, and IIHR Best Thought. And then 30 incubators under Raftar, so promoted by Ministry of Agriculture. 7 incubators under the Rural Business Incubation Centers under NABARD. NITI Aayog supports a couple of agri-focused incubators. And BIRAC supports few agri-biotech incubators out of the life sciences incubators that they support. So all of this is talking of volume about the ecosystem interventions, both by the public sector, private companies. And today, every company, at least I was in agribusiness companies earlier, I never heard about something called innovation in the agribusiness companies. Today, we are talking about innovation arms in the agribusiness companies. Today, there are a lot of venture capital arms of the corporates which are looking at investing in the companies. So this is the ecosystem that we are talking about. Having spoken around this agri-tech and then converging to the agri-tech case studies which are being launched today, it completely talks about the excellent activities the whole ecosystem has been doing, starting from the founders, the academia, the research, the public institutions, corporates, mentors, investors, all of them have been doing together in building a wonderful industry, much needed industry for agriculture. At least being an agriculture graduate, whenever I used to go to some Kisan Melas or exhibitions, I always used to wonder what is wrong with the country. Why do we ever wonder, oh, there's some fascinating Israeli technology or German technology, or what is really wrong for a country which has so many engineers, so many scientists who are there? What is wrong with agriculture? We only talk about drip or sprinkler as a solution. Are there not many agri-techs which are talking about precision farming, data, information that becomes very important? Imagine you are not with a mobile today. It becomes very impossible for you to actually figure out how you're going to pay your money, how you're going to figure out the time, how you're going to book your cab, a lot of these things. So person today, a human being has become so much dependent on the technology. If it can become so important for urban, why not for rural stakeholder, the farmer who is doing the agriculture? And with that context, I would request the ecosystem players, especially today we have ecosystem players like Sagar comes from the consulting experience and the startup experience, and now he's also leading the venture capital. And now Kanishka also comes from a developmental management background, and then she's been working with Nudge, and also Atri who comes from a startup. We have a very diverse panel out here, an investor, a startup, and also a non-profit enabler who's been working with the likes of Cisco, and they've been doing agri challenges. So there's a whole ecosystem down to it. And especially in IIM Bangalore, because we've also been working with IIM Bangalore and NSRCEL, they've been doing a quite lot of work on agri-business startups. Even the examples of companies like TraceX, which was incubated by the IIM Bangalore, and then it becomes a part of my previous accelerator. So there's a lot of convergence across industry. So let us hear from each of these players as to what is their perspective and what has been their role in building the agri-tech industry. And I would request Sagar to kindly put a perspective to this. Over to you, Sagar.
Hi, am I audible? Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Sagar. I'm from Omnivore, a venture capital fund investing in Agri-Tech. We were the first venture capital firm to even think about Agri-Tech back in 2012, 2013, when probably everyone were investing in your Flipkart, Zomatos, all your urban elite consumers. But we had understanding that there's a large rural economy that actually thrives on agriculture, and that's something that eventually caught up. The entire industry caught up as the statistics show. So Omnivore has been investing over the last decade. We have around $150 million under management. We have a couple of funds in place. We're raising a third fund, about $200 million. We have backed over 40 startups, and the range of the startups that we have backed are very diverse. From, say, example, Resha Mandi, which is a full stack silk supply chain, to Fasal, which is a farm sensor based startup, to Dehat, which is a full stack Agri-Tech platform. So, and another example, I think Pixel, which is a hyperspectral imagery startup. So the range of startups that we have backed is very, very diverse, which actually kind of shows or like debunks the general thought that, okay, what else is there in Agri-Tech, or what can happen in Agri-Tech, right? Everyone thinks, okay, you either sell seeds or you either buy produce, and that's the end of it for, say, the food or an agriculture system. But there is a lot of things that go on in, say, manufacturing a seed or manufacturing an agrochemical. So there's a lot of innovation pre-farming or in the inputs, and there's a lot of innovation that can happen, or there's a lot of processes that happen on the farm. So there's a lot of precision, there's a lot of opportunities for data analytics, AI on the farm. And then obviously post harvest, there's just so much innovation generally in terms of supply chain logistics, but also there's a lot of technology in play around reducing food wastage, ensuring proper ripening, etc., etc. So there is never, over the last decade, there has never been a dearth of innovation that we have seen. It has never occurred that we are seeing the same things over and over again, which is generally what everyone tries to think about agriculture or agri-tech, in the sense that, again, you just buy produce or you just sell seeds. But there's just so much innovation that is sort of capable. And as venture capital investors, I think one of our major kind of jobs is to spot this new innovation, try to understand the market opportunity for this, and try to catalyze that innovation. One interesting achievement that Omnivore is very, very proud of, and if you go to our website, we actually list down all the co-investors that have invested with us in agriculture. No one used to invest in agri-tech, and now you have all the Sequoias, Blackstones, everyone trying to invest in agriculture, because the fundamental profit and unit economics of agriculture is very, very strong, as opposed to, say, a consumer brand, or as opposed to, say, a last mile logistics or a delivery partner. So as people become more aware of the opportunity, I think that a lot of ecosystem partners should be present to kind of make the general innovation ecosystem aware of the opportunities, while also trying to support the growth and scale of these startups. So I'll pause here, maybe let others to.
Thanks for the the background. I think it is very fascinating to hear from you the kind of attention that this sector has got. I slight edit. I'm not spent a lot of time in the sector. I come from a 2 decades long history in marketing analytics and research, and I decided to move to the development sector very recently. At the Price or at the Nudge Institute, we are focusing on making sure that we incubate or induce innovation in a way that can tie into the ecosystem that you're basically outlining. And I think across the board, we kind of are connected to the challenge per se, because I think AgHub was one of the intervention partners last year when we did the prize with Cisco, which was to basically bring in farm innovations that could double the income of small farm holders. And I think Omnivore, Mark Khan was one of the advisors to the challenge as well. And A3 was one of the contestants who was part of the top 25. So from that perspective, we're actually saying the same things in terms of, the ecosystems come alive. There are a lot of people in this place who are making sure that they're trying to innovate and bring change. And as enablers, I feel like one level below where I think Omniware was trying to, what you're trying to say was that how do you bring innovation to the table? How do you make sure that the innovation that you're looking at is investable? And that's where the fundamental aspect of price comes in, that we're trying to create an environment, an enabling ecosystem where we let innovations compete with each other to put out
what they're best at, and showcase that business system, that model to multiple investors, multiple pilot ecosystems, multiple immersion and knowledge partners who can learn from that and bring the best of that lot into the landscape. And why that's very important for all of the pieces that you spoke about, and I'm not going into details because I can't preach to the choir, but why it's important for us to look at a lens of innovation and a challenge for the innovation is that we feel that scalability to the innovations is very critical for us. If these business plans and these innovations are not scalable for India's challenges, then effectively we're not really utilizing the capital like we have to. This capital is new and it is fleeting. So effectively for us to understand how to use this capital, it has to go to the most brilliant ideas. And for us to find those brilliant ideas, ideas need to compete with each other. The uniqueness of the India agriculture sector and the issue as well is the fact that it's extremely diverse and it has within its different stratas of innovation required. So some things that work for a particular agri belt in Maharashtra has no viability anywhere else. But that doesn't mean that doesn't, as a solution, it should not be either it should be rewarded or it should not be rewarded. So effectively, if you need a landscape, you need an environment and a platform for you to pilot it somewhere else and understand the scale factors. And that is where I feel that the Cisco Agri Challenge was successful in making sure that at least the top 25 that we selected were really, incredible ideas and people who were committed to the cause of bringing change within the agri sector. Just to show the interest, I think those 25 came from 750 applications to win 1 crore on the table. I don't think 1 crore is a huge amount of capital, but it just goes to show that there is appetite in this place to showcase innovation, to make sure that they have a voice at a national level where they can showcase what they're doing, what they're trying to change. And that story in itself is very interesting. So from that perspective, there is a lot of attention now. Going back to what Vijay started, that there is like an incredible amount of attention from public, from investors, from the ecosystem to really push this cart. And more challenges, more as we move to maybe livelihoods in the next phase of our challenges, a lot of our rural livelihoods are connected to agriculture. And how we, look at choke points, blockades that can be solved from a technology perspective when executed in a challenge in a mission mode is where we want to train our lens in. So, I'm just, saying yes to a lot of the things that you guys said, because I feel that this is an incredible moment for us to intervene with innovation and bring a lot of those things into the ecosystem in such a way that we all partner and tied on to whichever innovation works. Give it more wings, give it more capital, give it more space to pilot, give it more interface with the government, give it more interface with consumers, with B2C models like you were mentioning outside. So that's my perspective, and that's where price comes in.
So what we at Deep Flow Technologies as an Agri-Tech startup do is act as a platform for the farmers to improve their revenue. I mean, that's the ultimate thing that why we are in the sector. So we basically started out as a deep tech startup with literally no background in agriculture. And then fortunately we are into this segment and we will be in the future as well. So from our little understanding on the ground with the farmers, especially in Kerala, wherein this farming agriculture is like unexplored. Like most of the from here in this discussion as well, earlier as well, you might be noticing that most of the stories are from the northern part or not covering Kerala, since it's completely unexplored. And as DMD sir of NABARD and other people rightly mentioned, each and every geography in India is completely different. I mean, the farmer is different. The problem might be a common thing, pain points might be common, but the way to address it might be different. Packaging must be different. So this was an understanding that we had or that we learned during our 2 years on ground, like visiting various farmers on ground of various backgrounds, various geographies, especially from Karnataka, Kerala, and Tamil Nadu. So actually what we do is we provide a platform wherein the farmer is given personalized agro advisories, as most of the agri-tech players do. But as I mentioned, we started with robotics and we had to pivot. So that's the area that we found out, like, in order to sustain in this sector, we have to pivot multiple times and cater to the needs of the customers. That means ultimately the farmers. So currently we are also part of the network, the NABARD, everyone is there. So the ecosystem is getting ready right now, with rightly mentioned as Kaushik said, the Cisco Agri Challenge, the other system enablers, even AgHub or NSRCEL, everyone is working towards a common goal. Even the investors, I mean, the VCs, the angel investors. So from our perspective, what Agri-Tech is to us, or what we will be getting onto the board, is ultimately the farmer needs to see some sort of impact through the enablers or anything that has been interacted to him. So that's where we are positioning ourselves to come in. We are really looking forward to it. And since we don't have a background in agriculture, it's very much curious. I mean, at every time we meet a farmer, we learn one or two things every day. So that's the thing that is going for us, and yeah, looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you for putting in all the perspectives. I'll just add another couple of pointers. I think this is worthwhile to understand. As Agri-Tech per se, most of the startup founders, at least I have interacted out of more than 2,000 startup founders, more than 98% of the founders actually come from non-agriculture background. Having said that, most of the founders are able to navigate seamlessly into the agriculture ecosystem, working with the farmers and understanding their requirements, solving their challenges, and building in a tech solution eventually to solve that problem, number one. Number two, there's also another perspective to it. There's a lot of ecosystem on this side when we talk about the investors or enablers, non-profits, academia, research institutions, incubators trying to help the startups. And on the other side, the startups are actually trying to build varied solutions. There are startups which are talking about IoTs or robotics or machine learning or blockchain or AI, varied multitude kind of technologies which possibly agriculture hasn't witnessed earlier. So a lot of these technology players are actually coming in with these vivid technologies which can actually solve agriculture problems, number one. Now, the second question that comes is, how do we actually make sure, today the question is not around startups. Startups are there. There are startups, so many startups which are there for as much as almost 10 to 12 years, or possibly all of these mature startups which after the advent of the startup India have been doing a lot of on-ground activity with the corporates and farmers. Now the question is, how do we take these startups and to the farmers or the end users? It could be any other agriculture stakeholders who could be end customers. So I would like to take a small perspective from Omnivore and also Nudge and also the startup founder as to what has been their approach to mainstream startups and how are they taking these startups to the farmers and what is the interface they're following, what has been the challenge, what has been the opportunity, what is the way forward, is there any opportunities that we could all converge. I just wanted to pick your brain and like to take your thoughts on that. Over to Sagar.
Yeah, so I think there have been many learnings. So we backed the company in the first fund. I'm forgetting the name, but I know the insight, which was that it was directly working with the farmer, right? They were helping the farmer purchase seeds and then also trying to buy back the produce. Very simple idea. But the main challenge was that this farmer over the last 30 years has seen someone come to their doors and offer an attractive proposition like this. And they have been cheated every time over the last 30 years. So they have zero trust. So the main learning here was that you don't want to directly go to the farmer on day one. You would just end up being thrown away or your brand would actually go down. The main thing is that you work with the existing stakeholders that are there. This is general perception that the middlemen that are there either on the input or the output end are like the devils in the industry. While that is true for probably 5% of middlemen, but if middlemen are not there in the country, agriculture industry would come to a standstill. There's no way a farmer in rural parts of Maharashtra could sell their onions to someone in sitting in Bangalore. There is a need for a robust supply chain. There's a need for a lot of these SMEs and middlemen. So I think the one of the main learnings was to work with the middlemen. Don't try to replace them. They already have trust with the farmer. Bank on the middlemen. Bank on the people that already work with farmers, and try to push your solutions through them in a very slow fashion. That's one learning. The other learning was that there are basically two types of interventions, if I may say. One is whatever is existing, whatever is happening as of now. Say I am actually making a payment via cash. Digitizing that is probably easy than saying, okay, I don't pay via cash, but I'm gonna say pay a new instrument. Taking that leap from just paying cash to paying something else in a digital format also, that's too much of a leap for anyone, even an urban consumer, and it's more challenging even for a farmer. Why this example is because I'll give you the example of FASL, which is basically on farm sensors for horticulture crops. Farmer has never thought about that. They are not aware of the value prop. They don't know what it will give them and why is it needed. All they know is that, okay, I need to get more, I need to save water, or I need to, because they're paying for water, or I need to maybe increase my revenue. So that's the only thing that they probably connect. So try to enter the market with something that actually is something that the farmer is doing as of today. So I'll give an example of Bharat Agri. Onion farmers in Maharashtra get these consultants on farm, try to basically help figure out what pesticides and all to use. There's already an existing behavior that's there. So if you can digitize that, if you can make it better, it's an entry point. And after that, you can actually go to a farmer who is not availing any consulting services to make them aware. So there's a gradual process in behavior change. There's a gradual process in trying to make farmers do what you want to do without actually disrupting their entire life or disrupting their entire journey. So yeah, those are the two main learnings that we have sort of realized over the course of the last decade. And that makes sense, I think. Sagar, from an enabling perspective, I think our lens is we will work with people who work on the ground. We will slowly get into a space where we understand what is the impact of the technology that gets discussed on slides and on websites. Because ultimately, I love the way that you said that it took you 1 year to go back again and again and see if this is working, if the farmers like it or not. That's the only way to make it possible for you to gain trust and also onboard a technology that works. We've done that in our lens throughout throughout CSI, which is the Center for Social Innovation at Nudge, focuses on creating enablers, and PRIZE is one of the programs that we run under Center for Social Innovation. So very very early we decided that we want to work with Agri-Tech innovation or agri innovations. We had to work with organizations that had farmer centricity at the heart of it. And by farmer centricity, one of the impending challenges is working for small farm holders and small landholders, and effectively their challenges are very different, and their challenges, as you pointed out, Sagar, is connected with trust. And very often when we speak of technology and data, like we spoke about within the presentation right now from an agri value chain perspective, we don't trust the traders as being value adders, but that's our rational and logical view. I feel that the irrational view of the small farmer is that that's the ecosystem that they trust. So doing away with it actually, kind of like stops you in midway and you can't really progress. So our lens has always been to work with organizations that understand that,
work at the ground and spend a lot of time testing their products and helping create a trust equation with this with the final leg so that they can productize it later. But initially they'll have to basically spend that time. So Bioprime, one of our winners, even S4S, the winner for CSE last year, both are absolutely intertwined with the communities, and so much so that they're almost the safety nets and the fallbacks for the farmers that they're working for. So from that perspective, I think that lens has to be very clear whenever we're working with organizations, and specifically when we are as enablers, we are enabling capital, mentorship, we are enabling opportunities, and all of the other support system. We have to make sure that we are working with organizations that understand the last mile approach and work with them. So that's the perspective from the Nudge.
Before moving on to Atri, I'll just try to connect some perspectives. You can hold on the mic. So interestingly, what we hear from Omnivore and also Nudge is that there are actually a lot of startups that they're engaging with are actually working with farmers and FPOs. Because incidentally, that is a way for all the startups to lead and actually help the end user to solve their critical challenges. And I think very interestingly, as Kanishka has mentioned, I mean, the building in the inclusivity, the whole stakeholder liaison, making the startups work with all the agriculture stakeholders, because we cannot change the way the current agriculture ecosystem is working. Maybe the agriculture ecosystem works in a certain way. Farmers are working with the trading and the community, the commission agents. So there's an ecosystem around it, because that is the main financing is a key element, the way agriculture works. So until unless the farmer has money, they'll not be able to shell out money either for the next season for the production or either to kind of spend it for the innovation that we are talking about. So that whole inclusivity, making the startup work with the whole ecosystem, the academia, university, industry, and on the other side, the farming ecosystem where farmer is very much intertwined with the current ecosystem. Everybody has to be taken on board so that we are able to help the farmers with this kind of innovation advisory. Now, as previously what Atri was talking about pivot, I think we have pointed out a very interesting point. Most of the startups, at least I have seen, and also we all have been as startup founders, which we can relate to, pivot becomes a very important, aspect of the startup survival itself. In the first 2-3 years, when a startup talks about solving a problem and on the pitch deck, everything looks fine. But when we start hitting out the ground, the business model, the whole, who's your customer and who's the target crop or target market, everything in agriculture is so diverse because agriculture is a state subject. Even for example, if a startup says, I want to go with paddy, and then you want to do paddy in Punjab or maybe Telangana or somewhere in Kerala, everything is going to be different. So how does a startup cope with it? I think, can you just bring out that perspective? You briefly mentioned that pivot aspect. Obviously, you want to go with the robotics, but you are also doing a parallel activity in terms of giving information advisory to the starter, to the farmer. How are you balancing both, and what is the long-term vision of the company, and what are they? How you have survived amid these pivots as a company?
Okay, just first put a light on what the discussion was about. So in this area as well, I have to agree to both of you said, like you should always trust the people on ground, like work with them on ground. I'll just explain it in 2 phases. So initial phase for us, it's like learning. Like we have to identify what the pain point was, what we are solving for. So at that time, what we did was we connected with the KVK people, KVK and research station people who had got a lot of progressive network with them. So there's a lot of farmers who are depending on them, getting advisories, the technology thing. So they were the first people that we interacted initially. So we didn't pitch our idea. We didn't introduce ourselves. We just stayed numb and identified like what were the points that they were talking about. Like all the farmers talks about this fair farm gate price and all sorts of things. But we got to know that there's a lot of deep-rooted problem that the farmer needs to be, the sector needs to be solved. So that was 1 to 1.5 years of our journey, wherein we, as I mentioned earlier, we got to interact with a lot of people. And we got to understand that although the packaging is different, as I mentioned earlier, the pain points remains the same. We can solve, we can scale up, or everything can be done. So at that part, the KVK people, the research stations were our go-to guys to depend on and to move forward with the farmer network who will be a potential customers. So that's one part. The other part is getting the product, the product ready. developing the product parallelly as well as getting it commercialized or getting it validated to be in the first place. So at that time, what we did was with these progressive farmers, we ran some small pilots, wherein the complete product was not given. We were just testing the modules. The manual thing was given, the advisory thing was given, and we just realized how the farmer is coping with it. Like these are all farmers. I mean, we are not able to, we are not the people who are to judge it. Like farmers are the main people who's doing on ground. So we need to hear out them. I mean, we should not completely bombard with information. So all those learnings came from that part. And then like as most of the people in the discussion earlier mentioned, most of the farmers won't pay. So that's a difficult part wherein we have to get the revenue thing going or even make the farmer pay for a value that we are adding to them. So at that part, we had, we talked to other stakeholders like the government, the state governments, and it was the center government, the NABARD that understood our value and they thought that let's do a pilot wherein our technology is subsidized or given to the farmers on a subsidized rate at the initial year so that they could understand and we ourselves could take that skin in the game. So at each and every point of our journey, we were able to find these on-ground people. They, since we were also genuine, they're also able to bring their trust to us. So that was the whole journey in doing that. And as rightly mentioned, the trust or even the middlemen. So as Sagar pointed out, like we should not let that go. Like it's part of the structure. Gradually it should come, but it should be part of the structure. We should address it. The second part that you asked regarding the pivot, we, as I mentioned, we are having an engineering background. So our idea, our journey was like, we started with an idea for a robot that could identify the weeds that is growing around the plants and kill or reduce it. So it was funded by the Kerala Startup Mission earlier. But when we went on the ground, we understood that the problem is different. So that's where this consultancy extinction thing came. And we thought that we were the first people doing that. But we went onto the market. There were so many players, as Sagar mentioned, even Satyajit is doing. So at that time, but what we did was we made our roboting thing evolve. We thought of having it on the farm mechanization thing. And we pitched it before the Pusa Krishi team for that Agri-India hackathon and won that thing in the precision agriculture category. So what our robot now does is it, it's currently in the prototyping stage, but it is used to effectively spray agrochemicals on crops, reducing the investment of the farmer on these farm mechanization management things. So we found out a way wherein we can work on all these products, but solving for what the farmer needs at this point of time actually. So we had got a lot of rough patches, as you mentioned, sustaining. But at that time, fortunately, the Cisco thing came, and we were fortunately part of the top 25 Agri-Tech startups. And in their network, we got to a lot of exposure in terms of research and R&D and all sorts of, even with the Cisco team as well, like what the other stakeholder needs. So we found out another area wherein we could also contribute, not just the farmers. And what I believe or what we believe is like the farming or the farmers, addressing farmers alone won't solve the problem. We have to look at the other critical stakeholders which is supporting it. So likewise, we were able to still sustain it. But we believe that that's the way any Agri-Tech startup in India goes. Like multiple pivots, multiple models. So that's it, yeah.
And multiple players in the ecosystem who are helping them. Yeah. Just adding another perspective to it, as you rightly pointed out, most of you, when we're talking about Agri-Tech, there's a huge opportunity. 3,200 startups is nothing, possibly a lot more to go for deep-rooted problems in agriculture across farm to fork. There could be innovations in farm, food, supply chain, allied sectors. Every sector or subsector of agribusiness in itself is very, very unique. Any startup, for example, says I have an IoT solution. You're talking about an IoT solution possibly for agriculture or a horticulture sector. You have a vertical expansion to grow. And you also have lateral opportunities to grow horizontally within the sectors. You have the same technology which could be applied for allied sectors, poultry or fisheries. So these are kind of convergence models that could happen. the story of what we could hear from Srivatsa from Trace6, right? For last 5 years, I've been working with the founder. Until last 1.5 years, none of us, including us, enablers and the founder, have figured out there could also be a possibility of, exploring opportunities on traceability for seed. We sitting from Telangana, we say Telangana is a seed bowl of India and contributes to 60% of seed material across India. And more than 500 companies, big and small, are sitting in Telangana. And everybody on the other side of agriculture stakeholders will always crib around, hey, there's a seed traceability issue. Or they may talk about, spurious seed. So there's a problem we all talk about. Sometimes we don't realize there's an opportunity just aside us. So definitely there are deep-rooted problems that the agri-tech sector, which is just in a starting stage. We're talking about just 17-year-old industry, startups being built in. So there are a lot of opportunities on not just solving the problems that the startups are focused in. There are a lot of ecosystem players. In fact, most of the ecosystem players are giving a small tangible help, not only in terms of knowledge, network, but also capital. There are a lot of innovation grants which are available, bootstrap grants, equity funds which are available. I can talk about at least AgNext, 2015 when we were building AgNext. 2015, at least for me as an agri professional and suddenly coming from industry into agri-tech ecosystem, AgNext was talking about, data analytics. For me as an enabler also, it was very difficult to understand what it was. It took literally sweet time of 1.5 years for the founder to figure out what they're currently doing. This is how most of the startups who've been still there in the ecosystem have been able to be there because of the only factor that they chose to be there and took that consistency and persistence. And last but not the least, they were open to pivot. They were open to pivot based on what the customers, what the farmers, or what the agriculture stakeholders required. And today, when we talk about AgNext, this is raised, of course, funding is one dimension of looking at the success, but also looking at the solution. They're able to have a capability of doing a spectral imaging for quality analytics. They have a Qualix platform. Less than a fraction of a second, they can do quality analytics in high value commodities, tea, coffee, milk, turmeric. So, and last but not least, on the funding metric point of view, this company, after we invested as AIDEA, which was a part of our Agri-Tech accelerator, this company has raised almost $30 million from Omnivore and then Kalari, and then almost Alpha Incubation. And this company, I mean, this intern yielded AIDEA, my previous incubator, a 5x return. So there's an inclusivity in the whole system, right? The NABARD kind of institutions coming in. And when we talk about the farmer dimension, interestingly, so far, DST and BIDAC and other ecosystem players and ministries have been funding the incubators. Today, we are also talking about NABARD, a mainstream banking and developmental organization coming and having its focus around incubators, funding the incubators, and also funding the incubators to catalytic fund. So this is speaking volumes, the focus on the ministries, public institutions. And last but not the least, when all of these startups, at least today, very interestingly, Satyukt or maybe Trace6 or Krishi Tantra, all of these startups have some association with the players like NSRCEL, AgHub, and they also have been working with IARI, different incubators. They're also working with NABARD in certain way. Some are portfolios of NABARD, some are portfolios of Omnivore. So all of these players are doing deep-rooted efforts in, downstreaming the companies and actually taking the startups on the ground. So far, now if you see a very interesting pattern, for the last 7 years, we were trying to build the sector and upstream the sector, build the agri-tech ecosystem, build the incubators, build accelerators, build equity funds, build startups, help them grow, help them mentor, help them get funded. But now we are slowly trying to downstream them because ultimately as a country, unless we take these agri-tech startups to the much needed stakeholder, the farmer, this ecosystem is not going to survive. I think the ecosystem has realized a right striking point, a right striking balance for us to go downstream. And that is a matter of fact for which AgHub is doing its sincere efforts to launch very unique activities, the first of its kind agri-tech innovation pilots, to take these technologies and validate the technologies on the ground with the farmers and the scientists to do a user validation and a scientific validation. Co-innovation, first of its kind, where the agriculture scientists and startups together can build the product. So a lot more avenues are open. So with this, let's try to understand from the ecosystem players. I know every one of you has been representing the agri-tech in their own capacities. So where do you see this whole sector going forward in next 5 to 10 years down the line? Where do you see going forward, and what is that your organization has in vision in terms of building this sector in the coming time?
Yeah, before that, just wanted to put one point. There was some statement about farmers won't pay, and there was also this point on actually going and creating value to the farmer. Just want to make the statement that, okay, if you look at, say, the edtech sector, where, so take the example of Byju's or any other edtech player, right? You actually you can actually make money without creating impact. It's very easy. In the case of say agriculture, a farmer won't pay. The only way you can actually make money is by moving produce or actually increasing the yield or actually reducing the cost, etc. And you extract the value out of that value created. The farmer won't pay for the tech, but the farmer, you can extract value out of the impact created by the tech. So it's very tough for say an agri-tech company to probably just make money without creating impact. So taking it down to the farmer is very critical. And then once you take it down, you need to actually create impact. I think AgNext that you were mentioning, it is able to monetize and it is able to scale because it's able to move produce and try to reduce food waste, and that's how it's extracting value. Coming to maybe what we envision over the next 10 years. In fact, we have published a report on India 2030 agriculture, what we feel agriculture in India would be. Please do check this out. It's on our website, omnivore.vc. But there are three things that I think are still not solved in Indian agri-tech. A lot of funding has gone into, say, marketplaces, basically platforms buying from farmers and then selling it to multiple players. A lot of funding has gone, but then we are only 0.5% penetrated in the entire industry. So there's still scope for multiple platforms to emerge. And one interesting trend that we see here is that probably there won't be another hyper-funded DeHaat or Waycool, but you would have a niche tea-focused value chain platform or a niche coconut-focused or a banana-focused platform. So each of these industries, $10–15 billion, it has a unique opportunity to go right from the farmer to the consumer. So there's a full stack opportunity that can be explored. So we see that there's a lot of potential for platforms and especially vertical platforms to be built out. The second thing is that if you look at what's happening on farm, the difficulties of day-to-day difficulties of a farmer in terms of decision making, in terms of prediction is still not solved. So there's very limited precision agri. In terms of both IoT hardware and also digital-based precision agri. So we expect to see a lot of these technologies being penetrated onto the farm basically via two pathways. One, you have these large platforms like DeHaat, AgNext, and all of these already penetrated. So you'll have a lot of technology players try to ride these platforms and reach farmers. So these platforms that are just buying and selling will become like a marketing channel to reach farmers. So technology can get penetrated in that way. And the other way is you install a sensor on the farm and then you take control of the farm and then do everything in the farm, right? So and doing everything in the farm is a much better value prop for the farmer than just the sensor. So these two pathways is how we see more technology going onto the farm. And then the third thing, which is the elephant in the room, is you can't solve anything with digital. You can't solve anything with hardware. You need to actually innovate in life sciences. You need better quality seeds. You need you need the reduction in use of agrochemicals. You need better sustainable agriculture. So we see a huge scope in agri-biotech or agri-food life sciences, as we call it. It's a very nascent ecosystem in India, but we see a lot of people. The biggest hub in the world is Boston. A lot of Indian diaspora there. They are moving back to India right now. Very similar to what happened from in early 2000s. People from Silicon Valley moved back to India. The entire biotech ecosystem is kind of coming back to India. So there's a huge focus from BIRAG, there's a huge focus from DST, and we have launched a very small incubator platform as well, Omnix Bio on that. So life sciences and agri-biotech is a huge thing that will actually reduce the cost of cultivation, increase yield 3x, 4x to match China, US level. So that's the bigger sort of play that we see over the next next decade.
Thank you, Sagar. I'll just add two more pointers. I think two interesting dimensions that Sagar brought out is around not only building agri-tech solutions, but also working on the life sciences. Very interestingly, not just the corporates, but even in the universities. Traditionally, the universities have been focused on research and academia. Now, universities, the state agriculture universities are slowly making strides in innovation. At least the one I could talk about is the TNAU, Tamil Nadu Agriculture University. The PJTSA, Professor Jaishankar University, Haryana Agriculture University, which have incubators, have created an innovation ecosystem, incubation ecosystem. And very interestingly, these agriculture universities are also setting a way forward for translational research approaches among the MScs and PhDs, their own set of faculty who have their own core strengths in the core sciences, and they could bring in these translational research approaches to innovation. And slowly we may see, maybe in a couple of years from now, some kind of innovators, those MScs and PhDs, building in their innovations and building the products in the number one. The very interesting dimension I'd also like to bring up, comparing agribusiness industry with the agri-tech startup ecosystem. So far, unlike the startup ecosystem came in, so far the agribusiness industry was largely product market, where we see seed or fertilizers, anything as a product. But thanks to the startup ecosystem, we see not just the product market. We are talking about, especially when we started in 2015, we always used to wonder how would IoT be sold or how would a farmer buy. All of these questions were always a tricky question to answer. But now, when we talk about, there are a lot of service industry we're talking about, SaaS models or FaaS models, pay-per-use models, drone as a service. Everybody is talking about a new model. So I think the innovators, kudos to all of them, all the founders, have not only figured out unique problems to solve, but also with their innovations, not only towards the product, but also innovations inherently in the business model and the service itself. That is what is creating, strides in the industry. So let us all be cognizant that these kind of innovations on the business model will go a long way. I'm very much convinced that the agri-tech ecosystem will be there for quite a while, because it is not something which is just riding on the wave. Okay, maybe people may have apprehensions that, okay, now people are funding it, but honestly, we are in such a safe ecosystem, at least agri-tech, investors are very cautious about investing in companies. So whatever companies are being funded in the ecosystem, I can tell you, none of the agri-tech companies are getting equity funding, at least from mainstream angels or venture capital, until they are at least 2 or 3 years old. So they are validated in certain sense by the virtue of founders, their seriousness, their presence on the ground, the product being validated. So I think this is much more deepening as a sector, and there's a long way to go. Thanks for putting in that perspective, Sagar.
The number of agri-tech companies that have actually died or that are actually wound down, it's very, very less compared to, say, in an education sector or in the fintech space. This fundamentally, they might not become unicorns, they might not become big companies, but they'll be very small SME businesses who will probably impact 2,000, 3,000, 10,000 farmers. But the core unit economics of working in agriculture, at least from a business point of view, is really strong. That needs to happen for farmers as well, which is why we're all here. But yeah, that's always there.
Yeah, thanks, Sagar. Over to Kanishka.
So I don't have a lot to add on top of what Sagar mentioned, because I think precision tech, precision agriculture, and biologics are a key area for the next decade. I would say that there's a vast increase in sensor-based work in the agri space. Actually, creating data is the cheapest in the value chain. So you can create data very quickly. You can basically have a lot of sensors. You've got a lot of mechanisms to capture supply chain data, making sense out of it, actioning it, monetizing it, making that mobile for people to take decisions. I think that we've not even touched that area. I feel that for the next 5-6 years, we might see a lot of innovation in how do you bring this data across the multitude of stakeholders in financing, in basically supply chain, actually creating markets, and effectively the farmer at the end of the day. Because there are no dearth of apps today in terms of just like thinking about it, because of a farmer could look at different streams of intensification, diversification, or exiting the entire thing around knowledge, around supply chain. There are multiple technological interventions. Data is available, the means is available, but their trust with that ecosystem, their behavioral shift towards that ecosystem, making sure that this is the mode, my digital agency to somehow choose the right option for me is kind of missing. So that agency of the last mile, wherein I take a decision basis, I know what the outcomes are. For me to enable insurance markets, for me to actually actualize farm markets, market ecosystems, for me to basically look at futures, all of those, if we need to develop, I think it's going beyond the data, looking at behavioral interventions, behavioral technology innovations that can actually change the ecosystem of how tech is utilized by the last mind. So I feel outside of the ones that you mentioned, which are largely technological, they'll basically come in with a need for higher yield, with need for reduced cost of production. There is also this angle of behavioral technology that should basically see itself play out in the next decade. So that's the only thing that I want to add.
I just wanted to add on to that, like data, I mean, a lot of data will be added on for the coming 5 to 10 years. So that itself is a great mine for us. I mean, moving on. So, I mean, we have got the stack, I mean, the algorithm and all sorts of architecture ready, but the authentic data that it requires to run and to improve the efficiency or accuracy itself is a great challenge. So moving forward, we believe that with the data that we get from, as mentioned earlier during the discussion, NABARD is having a database, governments, state governments, and even corporates are into building the digital stack like Microsoft, Cisco is there. So all these things will enable us players like Agri-Tech players to leverage that data and to equip farmers to have much more depend on the output that we are giving. And see, we are all having a lot of confusions on the climate or weather forecasting. Like even the government is also finding very difficult to have a micro sort of forecasting for the farms as well. So these all factors and all these data comes around, and this will help us in leveraging that and delivering accurate output or even recommendations, advisories to farmers, and bringing out a greater impact. So that's what we believe that this is the way around it.
Thank you all the panelists. I had very interestingly draw some parallels, right? We are talking about a very healthy startup ecosystem, enablers, and then finally, as what Atri, the startup founder, spoke about is data. When we're talking about building startups, we're eventually talking about a lot of data being generated. We then talk about the forthcoming challenges or forthcoming opportunities in terms of data management, data collection, data processing, data privacy, data security. A lot of these aspects are there. Very interestingly and coincidentally, recently the Ministry of Agriculture along with World Economic Forum did a consultation meeting with the stakeholders. I was also involved, where they were possibly for the first time, Ministry of Agriculture thinking on the lines of exclusive policy for digital agriculture. So I think ecosystem is pretty much in sync with the forthcoming, and they're very forward thinking as what I could see. So I think with all of these perspectives, we see a great, cause that's happening on the back end. Possibly people who might be wondering, oh, this is something which is very early, but I think which is early in a way that it is going to build something for the future, because agriculture is evolving, and over a period of time, agriculture is not just facing the troubles of agriculture, but now the issues of climate change. A lot of these challenges are coming over and over. Market linkages, exports, compliances, organic certifications. So there's a whole ecosystem where the whole ecosystem has to be solved. The challenges have to be solved. I think this is a wonderful celebration. This whole event signifies a wonderful celebration of all these startup founders, expertise, risks they have taken, coming from non-agriculture background to actually come for the cause to solve the farming problems for the farmers, and all the enablers are putting in all their efforts. NSRCEL. I think even today, the launch of these 3 case studies signifies that there's something volumes to speak and write and talk and discuss and then educate to the future business leaders of the country from coming from the top-notch B schools. So probably at least as management students, we all heard about the world class IKEAs or Walmart or different case studies. Now possibly the forthcoming generations of agri entrepreneurs, progressive farmers, management B school professionals, anybody who wants to understand how these startups build over, what has been their experience, how the businesses evolved amid challenges. We all assume without challenges, nothing can be easily built. We all assume how, despite all of these challenges, the startups founders have actually built meaningful businesses for a sector which people assume it is challenging. Despite that, the founders have built this. So kudos to IIM Bangalore. Thanks, Professor Venki and Mr. Ganesh and Mukta and all the IIM faculty, IIM Bangalore's faculty and NSRCEL for building this over. I think this good message that comes from the ecosystem players, and with these good efforts of NSRCL and the other ecosystems, there's a good news for farmers and well-wishers of the country who think that agriculture should be improved. With this, I hand over to Mukta. Thank you for calling us over here. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. So, yeah. Fine.
I mean, one is every farmer, if you take a startup, right? They go to a farmer, convince a farmer, that takes time. Then the next farmer next door, again, they start all over again. I think there is some problem in the way people like NABARD are not lifting the weight. Because, I mean, either it has to be somebody, a government, or it has to be some funding agency who can permeate so many things that you guys have already done. I mean, you already have so many interesting ventures working in different parts of the country, but somehow it is not scaling enough. I mean, there's no, everybody, you have to restart the whole thing. Because we ourselves have several startups who have complained that, the farmer in the next village, again, the process is 6 to 9 months to get the trust. So I don't know where the problem is. Who is the agency who can break that trust? And in my mind, NABARD should take the big thing. I mean, they should be the ones who should push. I mean, they are convinced about your ventures. They should now say, okay, now I'm taking this venture over, push it out. So that's number one. Number two, you were talking about the funding thing. So which is, sorry, not funding, payment. So I think Atri was talking about the fact that the farmer will not pay and NABARD is subsidizing. So that's not a sustainable model. And Sagar was talking about how the value can be captured. How do you capture that? Do you directly capture it from the customers? That can happen if it's a large scale ITC or somebody, then you can enter into contracts with them and they can support you. But if there is a larger sort of marketplace, how do you capture it? In my mind, I mean, just some innovation has to come from the government again. Like maybe like the way we have GST or taxes, right? I mean, maybe it could be captured at the time of sale and then passed it back to the producers. So those sorts of innovations are not happening, and you're going to have the same problem. The farmer does not want to pay. All the risk is borne by the ventures or the investors. And then at some point in time, how will they recover the money? So I think there are some fundamental problems in this sector that you guys have to stare at it, and all the people should come together and figure out how do you address it. Because otherwise these things, you're saying it's all great news. I bet in a year's time we will have another panel like this. Again, it will be the same story. The future is great, but on the ground nothing much has happened.
So on just the distribution to like multiple farmers, of course, government can play a role, but this is something that we always saw as a big challenge. And I actually went into, say, UPL's balance sheet, Jan Irrigation's balance sheet, and if I'm not wrong, I think 6 or 7% of the revenue goes into marketing. Is actually very high if you look at general comparables. So to solve that problem, we recently invested in a startup called Krishify. What they do is they do two things. One is they are building what we call Agriverse, the equivalent of metaverse for the world. It's an Agriverse for your farmers. So it's a rural world that they have got on a mobile phone. It's a mix of TikTok, Facebook, multiple things that keeps farmers engaged, etc., etc. What they're also doing is going to these startups, agribusinesses, and everyone, and trying to make this the Facebook ads platform or a distribution channel to reach every farmer. So you have, so if you open the app and if you have all, so a farmer can add friends, right, on the app. So there's a farmer in this village, he sees a farmer in the other village, and the app actually kind of puts that this farmer is using this technology. So if the technology is registered on the app, it actually says that this many farmers near you are using technology of Fasal. This many farmers near you are using the technology of Bharat Agri. So that kind of, so just to like build that virality, build that scale, a social network solution is very, very essential. That's how a lot of these general solutions around payments, edtech. They've all capitalized on Google ads, YouTube ads, Facebook ads. We need something like that in the rural ecosystem. So that's our bet in that space. But no, that's fair. That's fair. But you can't. It's a attempt to solve the problem. It will not solve it 100%, but it's an attempt, I guess. That's one thing. On your value kind of question, so obviously a GST or a general tax would be the best. But how, say, a company like Fussel, which installs an IoT device on the farm, captures value is that if the yield is kind of increased by 20%, Fussel provides a price premium of 10%, but still Fussel stands to make the margin, and then it gives the device out for free. That's how they are kind of making money, all these technology companies. It's again hazy. The price premium sometimes can be very less, the price premium can be high, the yield can be less. It's all, but overall, that's the model that's kind of being followed, is that you give out the technology for free for a much wider adoption, and then based on the impact of the technology, you build input or output partnerships, and then you price the produce in a way that you make margins. So end of the day, from the farmer point of view, they're getting the technology, they're getting someone who will buy the produce or give them inputs. It's a one-stop solution for them.
Just adding on that perspective, when we talk about, what could be the central channel which can talk about, these innovations at a central level, talking to various farmers across the districts. Of course, NABARD, as you rightly pointed out, so that could be one option. But having said that, at least today, at least those 100 incubators operating in those universities and ICRs, everybody is talking about these startup founders and these technologies to their own set of farmers. For example, AgHub itself, which is a part of Telangana University, just been operating for last 1 year, has been talking about these 30 startups to more than 5,000 farmers on average. Satyuk, you all have done that work on the ground. It's pretty much happening, number one. Number two, yes, there's kind of centralization that has to happen. Even today, NABARD has these 7 incubators. They'll slowly take an approach to how do they mainstream these startups to reach out. Last but not the least, leaving apart the startup ecosystem and the NABARD ecosystem, there has been a traditional ICR and the state university ecosystem which is already there. And these, they have functional KVKs, and all of these KVKs are not only looking at the research solutions, they're also equally looking at the startup solutions. So there's a two-sided approach. Not only the enablers or the universities have a role to play or KVKs have a role to play, but equally every startup has a role to play. Go reach out to the the KVKs and spread the word. Number one. Number two, when we talk about, yes, this has always been debated whether farmer will be able to pay or not. One thing is for sure, despite all challenges, there are instances farmers have paid to agri companies for seeds, Monsanto, or big companies which have BT seeds. Technologies farmers have always valued, but they have always paid for it. Now the question is, Agri-Tech is completely a new aspect for a farmer. They would not know what this IoT AI robotics means. Forget about a farmer. Even for me as Agri MBA and having done Agri graduation, this is very new for me for 5-7 years back. So at least the farmer has to know what this jargon, what this IoT or what this robotic is, and has to understand the startup proposition. Very recently, during my farmers interaction in districts, we took these startup founders to pitch before farmers. And now the farmers slowly were able to understand, they were very excited to use it. One simple example I can quote about, for example, a drone spraying company is talking about spraying through drones and giving the service at 350 rupees a day. They had to, actually the farmers are not able to get even labor sometimes during peak season. They have to end up paying 700 rupees. So there's a lot of value proposition. The only hitch for this whole ecosystem has been we were all under an impression that B2C is challenging. It is not. Every agri company, big company, they have their own fleet of sales teams. They do go on the ground. They hard sell it, of course. They make the farmers aware. There's a process to it. That if you see even omnivore portfolios, they do a lot of effort. Fussel, even few of my friends are in Fussel. So all of them actually put a lot of effort going on the ground, interacting with the farmers. So I think it's a deep-rooted challenge, big challenge, not easy to solve. However, drawing parallels from the agribusiness industry, when farmers are willing to buy a lot of these technologies, farmers would eventually buy this. And that is why I added the dimension that we are not offering just products as the agri-tech industry. We are also offering services and pay-per-use models. So eventually this kind of innovations in the business model and the offering itself will possibly do that. And third is also, is there any cross subsidization that could happen? Possibly, yes. The government organizations and NABARD, even for that matter, we can talk about community kind of organizations which do value chain financing. Can there be any kind of cross financing that could happen? Ananya Finance, these kind of organizations are there. So I think the ecosystem on the cross financing for buying these kind of innovations is something which the ecosystem has to come forward. That is all food for thought, and there's something which has to be built in the due course of time. Did I miss out anything? There was a third thing, maybe you can add on.
So Professor, regarding the thing that you mentioned regarding financing with subsidizing the subscription for the farmers. So what we understood from the ground is like, as Sagar mentioned earlier, like farmers have been for the past 10 to, I mean, 5 to 10 years or so, these farmers have been confronted with a lot of players like us, like both government as well as the other players. So from their experience, what they are knowing is like some people will come and they'll tell about the technology and they'll go. Once it's done, once the data is done, marketing is done, everything will go. So that's where we identify, that's the crux where we have to, solve for the farmers to gain the trust. So that's why we have been persistent in pitching with governments, wherein state as well as NABARD. So ultimately NABARD came in with us. State is currently on the process. So this is where NABARD has asked us to do one. So the subsidized rate for subscription is for only 1 year. So the initial year, it's a skin in the game for us. So for us, we'll be bearing a substantial amount. Farmer will be paying an amount. NABARD will be funding it. So that's the area wherein the farmer can believe that this will be there for at least 1 year. And from there on, the farmer has to pay. The interested farmers has to pay. That's one. The other one that you pointed out regarding who should be the person to address it is like what I have understood from the ground works is like the local self governments, the panchayats, the Krishi Bhavans, that convergence has to come. So this is what we presented before the conference that was there in World Bank with Kerala government for the Kera project back in March. It's like there is a lack of integration between government agencies as well. Like that's the area wherein we can pump in a lot of data, like the land data, all sorts of data. And most of the farmers are dependent on these agriculture officers. It's like they also treat us like agriculture officers, although we say that we are a private player, but what they see us is like an agriculture officer. So they are these, speaking from an agriculture officer point of view, they are bombarded with a lot of clerical works, especially in Kerala. So that has to change. Even a lot of agriculture officers are willing to come on ground. So, so many of them have shared that. So that sort of convergence has to come around. And we have Panchayat. So the project that we're implementing right now, the pilot thing, is a convergence thing. Like it's not NABARD and us alone and the farmers alone. There is Krishi Bhavans, the state agriculture department, as well as the Atma thing. Everyone is converging. So we are trying to build a network wherein this conversion can work out and the farmer can regain that trust. So, and even we have panchayat presidents who have promised that if it works out, we can roll it on the other year, we can roll it as a panchayat program. Since the NABARD support is only for a year. So that kind of a thing should go easily said than done. So a lot of things, socioeconomic as well as political things comes in place. But once this is done, we can solve that problem to a large extent in terms of gaining the trust from the farmers. Like we are all solving for the common cause, be it he or she may pay us or the government. But the thing is, this thing can be a common agenda as well as. Yes, sir. The thing is, see, you don't need to address all the farmers. If you can cherry pick the ones who are hungry, and then nothing like, seeing a successful farmer next door, then everybody will follow them. Yes. So maybe you should just go village to village and pick the most entrepreneurial farmer. Yeah. And say, we'll give you the full stack. Yes. And then, so I think that's where some innovation on the ground models have to happen. Understood. Because if you go and address every farmer is in a wide spectrum, right? Mm-hmm. So then you're going to find it very hard.
Right now, I think DeHaat's micro entrepreneur model is exactly that same thing, which is basically DeHaat identifies within their zones, each village has this micro entrepreneur who becomes DeHaat's voice. And DeHaat's voice, as in they have access to the seeds, they have access to the kind of the free ecosystem that DeHaat provides is the the crop cycle consultancy, and that gets enabled through this particular individual who's also doing it.
in their own land and also propagating the message. So some of these organizations have already taken up that measure to gain trust, again, build up that ecosystem of trust that they're outsiders, but they are in for the longer game and trying to basically establish this trend.
Actually going around and helping, like breaking the trust barrier with all the farmers. So here you're picking one person,
No, but
and the other guys within the system will just
no, that
mimic.
the individual's responsibility is to propagate that message. So that individual, along with Dehat's support system, goes out and enables that message that we are here to help you do certain things. So the trust is a core value that that individual is bringing to the game.
See, I'm just thinking that you just leverage the human behavior, right? The greed. Yeah. I see. So I'm saying a slightly different thing. I'm saying pick a farmer. Correct, correct.
So they set up a demo farm and then they hold an entire day's event. So that's also happening.
Also, every district there are around 704 Krishi Vigyan Kendras. I think the actual mandate of any grassroots level institution is the KVK in every district of India, which serves the purpose of agriculture extension. They have this concept of they're scientific guys. I understand that. So I definitely understand. But having said that, they have to be, trained on how they can mainstream the startup founders. For that matter, 5, 7 years back, even Naram or State University period, say everybody was new to the startup ecosystem. We mainstreamed it. Someone has to take that effort. But technically, when we are talking about the trust today that exists with the farmer knows the KVK at the grassroots level in terms of whatever research that comes from a public system into them. So now as institutional enablers, how do we convince KVKs to pass on the message of the startup founders today? Because when you're talking about trust, at least the public trust that exists within the whole ICR ecosystem, leaving apart the state university ecosystem, it is only the KVK as a structure, not even the NABARD for that matter, which has a direct interface with the farmer. NABARD has an interface with the FPO as an institution. But the question is with the individual farmer, and that is where the demo farms, progressive farmers, this is an existing institution, and that is what I'm talking about. Why do we talk about creating a new structure altogether? There's an existing structure. We go with that construct and just try to, sensitize them. This is also something you could do. That is one way of looking at it.
That is true. I don't think any private company can match the unit economics of a local aggregator or a mandi trader who basically has his mom doing accounts, who has his brother doing HR. So it's very tough for a private company to like have staff all over India, try to procure and all. So I think there are two models here. Initially, the entire aggregator or a mandi trader would buy the produce, basically undercut the farmer, and then sell it to someone else. But so that's one model. What the companies try to do right now is use the mandi trader or the aggregator as a partner just to source, just to identify the farmer. So that's the model that they are trying to evolve into. But I don't think direct farmer on ground procurement will ever be a thing in a country as big as India.
No, but it's again I think you know the farm laws which came in, they were a part of actually outlining how that commercial activity will happen in the future. So a few parts of it would have kind of democratized the mandi markets a little more. The largest challenge is there's no price discovery right now. So it's actually a complete case of information asymmetry for the regular small farmer. The traders also sometimes, operate in a place where they'll tag on to bigger traders. The smaller traders don't have enough visibility. Therefore, the movement of produce is not very, smooth. So anybody who can actually come and disrupt that kind of a space where you have quicker price discovery, the price at the farm gate and then effectively at the mandi, just the knowledge that there is a future value of your produce, and effectively you can tag along with somebody who's doing maybe warehouse receipts, and therefore you're able to yeah, quantify the kind of value that you'll get out of your produce in a later market. Those kind of tech interventions will enable this market to open up. Like you can really rejig the output market. The input market is easy because you know what basically goes in, and there's a certain amount of price. It's a consumer business, right? But the output market is kind of all over. So you have a produce, you don't have any means to really store it for the small farmer, and you have to go to the mandi to do it. And whoever pays you at that point of time, a lot of the payment does not happen overnight. The payment happens after a month, in 6 months for some traders. So whoever pays you, you will basically discount your price to get that payment at that point of time. So those are the real challenges of the mandi, or the wherever the mandi exists or any kind of market exists. So any kind of interventions there from an agri perspective are absolutely incredibly important, but there aren't enough incentives for you to do it unless you're the buyer. And if you're the buyer, then you have to basically then you want to engage with not a lot of sellers, a small number of sellers. So you don't want to basically deal with 150 producers of a particular topic, of a particular product. You want to basically only concentrate on 2 or 3 from a contracting perspective. So that's where the challenge is, that there aren't enough real incentives to really change that ecosystem unless the market opens up. And if the market opens up, it's basically free for everybody to buy, sell in a way that they want to. Then, yeah, the innovation will automatically come by the buyers, by the sellers.
Thanks, everyone. I think it threw up more questions than answers, but that's always a good sign, because which means that we know that the path ahead is not easy, and there is a lot more work to do. So we need to just get down and get to it. So there were some questions propped up here. There were some solutions by different teams. So there was an equal mix. So wonderful having you all here. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. And let's hope that we are together able to answer some of these questions that have cropped up today. Thank you so much, Vijay, for spearheading this particular part, and everyone, Atri for being here, Kanishka for taking this up last minute and coming in. Sagar, thank you so much. Very different dimensions, and that's exactly why we wanted this mix. So thank you everyone for a wonderful evening. Some amount of information, some amount of insights, and a lot of questions more. Ganesh, thank you so much for allowing us to take this to an outcome. Is there any closing note that you'd just like to share, please? Okay, so with that, we end this event, and thank you so much, everyone. Have a great evening. let's hope we continue to collaborate. Our paths will continue to cross. Wishing you all loads of luck. Thank you.